Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto finds out he has a sister. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Maverick9871 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. 9 figures stood over a pile of rubble, all in a circle looking at one another, and one said, "So do you all agree to what I have proposed? If you accept, there is no backing out of this deal and you will have to live with it for the rest of your life. Do you accept?" Each figure looked around and spoke in unison, "We accept the honor and duty you have asked of us." The leader said, "Good. Welcome, sisters." The next moment a blinding light was seen and then they had vanished. Naruto Uzumaki was a normal 7-year-old child living in the Leaf Village and was currently in his second year at the academy, having failed the first year's final exam already once and this year was about halfway through. To be honest, normal was the one word that one should not associate with him. He has no knowledge of being the vessel for the great Kyuubi no Kitsune that attacked Konoha 7 years ago on the day of his birth and is ignorant of the reason for the hatred and absence of friends in his life, although this is about to change. Naruto awoke to an alarm clock going off in his room and he blinked and sleepily looked at it and asked himself, since when do I have an alarm clock? He could not believe his eyes since the room had virtually changed overnight and he had to reassure himself that this was truly his room. His fell upon the clock again and sighed and exclaimed, "Weird." As he got out of bed and went to the bathroom to do his usual routine. When he re-entered the room he was shocked again. His orange jumpsuit had been exchanged for black ones. He looked around trying to figure out what else had changed in his apartment and discovered that his fridge had been stocked as well as his cabinets. There were also some scrolls and books on his table and one scroll laid on the coffee table that had his name in bold letters written on it. Curiosity getting the better of him, he took the scroll and began to read. "Dear Naruto-kun. We know you hate people for breaking into your apartment, those stupid villagers, but this time is different. My friends and I have decided that we care for you and want to see you happy, so we are going to do all we can to make it happen. The first thing we did was getting rid of that orange jumpsuit that screams kill me. I know you may say orange is your favorite color, but we know that this is because that is all they would sell you and you needed something to wear. We also restocked your food supplies so that you can grow big and strong. I know you claim to love ramen, but we know that this is because it is all you can afford to get and is the reason for your love of the ramen restaurant. We will not make you quit eating ramen, but please eat at least one other meal a day and we call that even. The books are to help you with your choice as being a ninja. We want to see you grow big and strong and those will help with that. I know they are boring to read, but in the long run each and every of these books will help. I promise. The scrolls have a few jutsu and training equipment to help you. Do not train where people can't see you. There is a training ground a half-mile behind the Hokage monument with a waterfall that should be perfect for you to exercise on. There have been seals placed on your doors and windows so that no one can enter your apartment and take your stuff again unless you let them add their blood to the seal next to the picture of the Yondaime and his wife on your wall. We gave you the picture so you can imagine that they are watching over you and are proud of the fine young man you are becoming. To get in you have to bite your thumb and wipe it across the doorknob before it will unlock the door and it only will stay unlocked for 10 seconds, so you have to open it quickly before those 10 seconds are up or you will have to repeat the process. I know you want to know who we are, but we cannot tell you yet. It is not that we do not want to, it is just that you have to wear that mask to protect yourself from the villagers. We too have to wear a mask to make people think we are not helping you, so they will not try to stop us. Do not under any circumstances tell anyone about us, not even the Hokage or the people at the ramen stand. They may think that we are first making you think that we are nice to you and then later hurt you, which we are not going to do. Please say you received them from a blonde-haired woman with a diamond on her forehead who said she was repaying your father but refused to tell you who she was. The Hokage will think it is one of his trusted students who has not been in the village for a long time. The person we are referring to knows about this and is okay with it, so that way everything will be okay. We know who your parents were and we will tell you in time, so trust us. When you learn who we are, please do not hate us because of our mask, because we may have to say something that may sound hateful, but it hurts us to say it because we care for you, so please trust us and do not be mad at us. I know it is not easy for you to trust, but it is worth it. When we tell you who your parents are, we will also tell you why you are hated by the village when they should be praising you as their hero. You will understand later. This is not charity. Think of these as late birthday presents, since we have not been able to give them to you before and you will get more in the future when we think you are ready. If you have anything special you might like, just think about it and we will try to get it for you, but this does not mean just anything. It would have to be either something you honestly need or really want badly. Sincerely yours. Sisters of the Circle. Naruto read the note again and smiled, thinking of what he read, and smiled his first true smile in his life. He walked back into his room and got dressed in the new clothes and discovered a partial face mask and a bandana to cover his hair with. He smiled as he put it on and then went into the kitchen and fixed himself a bowl of cereal. As he is eating it, he looks at the scrolls and books and saw one that said "Do First" in bold letters. He opens it and reads Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kage Bunshin is a Jonin rank forbidden technique that allows the user to create corporal copies of the user and is used for many different abilities. It can be used for spying and fighting as well as training. Anything a Kage Bunshin learns before it is dispelled or gets destroyed returns to the original and they gain the knowledge the clone possessed. It is great for helping with paperwork and homework. Note: it will not make the user physically stronger and they can only take one direct hit before dispelled, but they can work on chakra control exercises and that will transfer to you. The technique splits chakra evenly between host and clones. More chakra equals more clones, but do not force a lot of chakra into one or two clones because they will explode. Spread the chakra out. Naruto smiled and looked at the books and thought, this will help me learn all these books faster as well as other techniques, and since I don't have school today I can start now. And he proceeded to try the hand signs but failed the first time. A few hours later Naruto was panting, but he had a smile on his face as he looked at the 3 perfect Kage Bunshins in front of him. He asked, so how do we do this? One clone said, I'm hungry. Another clone said, let's try more jutsu. The last clone looked around and said, I think we should read those books. Naruto and the other 2 clones looked at him and the real Naruto said, you're right. Whoever these sisters are that gave this to us must have wanted for us to actually read them. Let's get started. And then fell flat on his face. The clones looked at each other and the first clone said, you heard him. And walked over to start reading and looked at the title Human Anatomy. And then he vanished due to chakra depletion. The other 2 clones blinked and moved to help Naruto, but when they picked him up they ran out chakra as well and caused him to fall again. A few hours later Naruto woke and looked around and saw he was in his bed again and thought it was some kind of dream, but when he looked beside his bed, he saw the new alarm clock and it read 3:30 in the afternoon and there was a note, remember what we told you about it. It splits your chakra evenly. Good job on getting the hang of it so fast and you should know what they learned even though you passed out. Try and eat this apple and then try again, but start with reading before you work on your body because you will find some equipment to help in your scrolls. Note: do not just read the books. Read them until you have them memorized. Sock. Naruto sighed and got out of bed and grabbed the apple and smiled since this was his first apple he ever ate. He walked back into the living room and walked over to the scrolls and did the Kage Bunshin jutsu again and created 3 clones and said, okay, I want one of you to work on that human anatomy. One of you to start organizing these books on my new bookshelf over there while reading the titles so I will know what they are, and I want the other one to look through the scrolls and see if you can find the equipment they talked about. Each one said yes. And got busy working on it while the real Naruto picked up a book and read the title Chakra Control and Why It Is Important. And started to read. 9 Figures smiled a few moments later, knowing that everything was working out great. Chapter 2. Naruto had spent the entire weekend in his apartment reading the books and scrolls, not even leaving to go get ramen. Naruto was currently up to 5 Kage Bunshins. He had one working on trying to get chakra to float a piece of paper above its head, one was reading the book titled Shogi for Beginners. Another was reading Basic Diplomacy. One was reading How to Cook. And the last one was reading Basic Sealing. The real Naruto was currently doing 200 sit-ups as part of his training schedule he was to work on. 167, 168, 169, 170 and a knock came on his door causing him to lose count and he said damn it. And got up and walked over to his door and asked who is it. A moment later a kind old voice Naruto knew said Naruto, it's me. Can I come in? Naruto dispelled the clones and said yeah. And he reached for the door and opened it and smiled as he saw the man he considered a grandfather. The 3rd Hokage was smiling, but he was curious when he saw Naruto clothes and when Naruto said won't you please come in. With a little bow the Hokage had questioning eyebrow. As he walked into the apartment his eyebrows rose all the way to the ceiling seeing the new look to Naruto apartment and when he heard the door closed he turned and looked at Naruto wondering what was going on. Naruto smiled and asked would you like some tea old man? The 3rd chuckled and said yes please though I have to wonder how you have tea and wats with the new cloths and stuff in your apartment. Naruto stiffened for a moment and then said well that's the strange thing old man. The other morning when I woke up a blonde-haired woman was in my apartment and she had this weird diamond thing on her forehead and she said she was repaying my father whoever he is for something and that this is like a late birthday present. She seemed nice and all, but she would not even tell me her name as she left right after that, but she gave me some books and scrolls and new cloths and some food beside ramen. Do you know who she is because she said you were her teacher or something? As he returned with some boiling water he had already going because of the Kage Bunshin trying to learn to cook. The third himself was thinking Tsunade, when did you get back to town and what would you be telling Naruto that? The third smiled as Naruto served him his tea and asked so how did you learn manners so quickly Naruto? Naruto scrunched his eyebrows trying to figure if it was an insult but decided it wasn't and said well I learned it with a little help of a jutsu she gave me. The third seemed interested and asked really, what jutsu? Naruto put his hands in a cross as the third started to take a sip and said Kagebunshin no jutsu. And 5 clones appeared causing the third to spit his tea out in shock and he looked at Naruto and the 5 clones and Naruto said okay, get back to what you were doing before. And they continued what they were doing and the third was beyond amazed with what he was seeing. The frown came on his face and asked Naruto. What do you know about this jutsu? Naruto scrunched his nose again and walked over to a pile of scrolls and grabbed the one that had Kagebunshin on it and walked back over and handed it to the third who read it and his eyes got wide reading the part about paperwork and thought I can't believe it's that simple. If you were here right now Tsunade I could kiss you. In a casino several hundred miles away a blonde sneezed causing her dice to roll and she blinked and said I won. It's the end of the world. Her assistant quickly grabbed the winnings and ran to pay off a debt much to Tsunade's dismay. Back with the third he finished reading it and said okay Naruto. I think that everything is okay, but what are the other jutsu you have if you don't mind me asking? Naruto frowned and said I don't know. The instructions I got with my training schedule said the scrolls will only open when I get the right amount of chakra control for that scroll, and they are each numbered to which should open next, so now I am trying this modified leaf balance chakra control while I am here reading the books. Later I am going to start tree climbing. The third thought for a moment and he thought that his student must be thinking ahead and agreed with that and said okay Naruto. I guess that answers all my questions, but if that woman comes back ask her to see me sometime to catch up. Naruto smiled and said sure thing old man. I do have one question though old man if you don't mind me asking. The third smiled and said if I can. Naruto nods and points to the picture of the Yondaime getting the third to look at it for the first time and go wide-eyed as he sees who the couple are and Naruto said I was told this seal right here is to let people in my apartment so the villagers can't steal my stuff and you can't get in without putting your blood on the seal and then on the doorknob so my question is do you want to put your blood on it to make sure it works? I already did mine but I don't really know anything about seals and want to make sure I don't get locked out of my own apartment. The third finally takes his eyes off the picture and looks at the seal and recognizes it as one of the ABNU level security seal for prisoners and said sure Naruto, that seal should work just as you were told. As he bit his thumb and wiped some blood across it, causing it to glow blue for a moment, and Naruto did the same thing and nods his head and walks back over to sip some more tea. The third glances back to the picture and asks Naruto, do you know who these people are? Pointing to the picture. Naruto walks over and said yes. I was told that this is the Yondaime and his wife and when I got the picture I was told that it's like they are watching me and are proud of the young man I am becoming, though I don't know why the Yondaime would care about an orphan, but it makes me feel like I have a family or something. The third forced a smile though on the inside he was thinking you have no idea how close you are Naruto. I wish things could be different for you. I'm glad you got this picture and it's probably the only one with them together so treasure it. And said he was the Hokage so he cares about everyone in the village and his wife was a good woman who was just like you in some ways actually, but I might tell you about them some other time since I got to get back to my paperwork. Naruto smiled and said hey old man. Why don't you use that Kagebunshin jutsu to help with your paperwork? It's pretty neat. The third smiled and said perhaps I will Naruto, perhaps I will. Now Naruto I do have one thing to say. That jutsu is very dangerous if it gets in the wrong hands, so don't show anyone how to use it or any of those scrolls unless I say it's okay. I don't want to see you or someone else get hurt. Naruto nods and said yeah, it eats chakra a lot. I already passed out after I got the hang of it. The third nods and walks to the door and Naruto opens the door and said thank you for coming old man. The third chuckled and said you have learned manners Naruto, but I guess something will never change. Good luck and have a good week at the academy. Naruto nods and after the third is gone he closes the door and locks it before going back down and sitting and looks at the picture of the Yondaime and said you may only be the Hokage and his wife but a part of me wishes you were my parents. At least then I would finally know who my family is or was. With a sad smile on his face. The woman frowns as she hears him say that and she lets a tear fall down her cheek. The next day when Naruto got to class he was about to take his normal seat by the class rookie Sasuke, but remembered one of the books he read said to avoid conflicts by moving to a safe position, so he walked to the back of the class, to where an empty seat always is, and sits down there and pulls out his notebook and pencil. He hears something moving on the other side of the room and looks, and he notices Shikamaru and Choji playing shogi, so Naruto leaves his stuff there and gets up and walks over and looks at the board a moment and said game's over in 10 moves. Causing both boys to look up at him. Shikamaru looks at the board and said close 8 actually, you play. Naruto sighs and said I just started to learn, but I recognize the moves you have him set up for from the books I have been reading. Doji eats some chips and said since even I know I lost you want to play him a game Shika, maybe you can help him out. Shikamaru looked bored and said it's troublesome but sure, we still got a little time. And they reset the board. They played for 10 minutes and Naruto sighed and said you won in 3 moves. Shikamaru looks at Naruto and said you just started to play. That is actually pretty good. Naruto smiles and said thanks. I just used what I learned so far with what I have done with some of my pranks before and it seemed to work for a while, but it was fun. Thanks for letting me play and here since I took your game as my way of saying thanks. As he hands Choji a cup of instant ramen. Everyone knows Naruto is a ramen head and for him to give his food like that made him have 2 new friends. Shikamaru smiles and said no problem. Keep learning and we will play Agent sometime. Naruto said sure. As he got up and walked back over to where his stuff was and sighed when he got there seeing someone had broke his pencils and put a rip halfway through his notebook. He hears some kids snicker in the background and he sits down and takes the 2 pieces of the pencil he has and sets them down together on his desk, waiting for class to start. When the 2 teachers walk in Iruka screams settle down. As he looks around the class and he narrows his eyes when he sees Naruto because of his new cloths. He's not allowed to wear face mask or hats in class so they can tell who he is. He looks around the class and said okay. Today we are going to have a pop quiz. Just then the kid that was snickering a moment before jumps out of his seat and screams I'm on fire, help, help, someone help me. And drops to the ground and starts to roll on the floor, making the whole class erupt into laughter. Iruka walks over and grabs the student by his shirt and said settle down, you are not on fire. If you or anyone else in this class disturbs the test, you will get an F as he lets go of the student who is shaken up and looks around trying to find the fire he knew he felt and saw earlier. He sits back down and looks uneasy. Iruka sighs and said please pass out the test Mizuki. And Mizuki starts walking through class handing out papers, but when he gets to Naruto he hands one off the bottom of the stack with his back to Iruka. Iruka screams at that moment what the hell. As he felt something crawl up his pant leg, but he looked at it and saw nothing. Mizuki hands the paper in his hand to Naruto and smiles and said good luck. As he finishes passing out the test. Iruka said begin. And everyone starts taking the test and Naruto is surprised because it was stuff he read recently and quickly works though it. Iruka sighs and said what is it Sakura? Making everyone in the class look at her. Sakura looks around and said I'm sorry to bother you Iruka sensei, but I think I got the wrong test. We never covered any of the stuff on this test. Iruka looked confused Bekua Sakura was one of the brightest in class and he asked what do you mean Sakura? Sakura looked down at her test and said well take this first question. If you are interrogating a prisoner who is giving you all the answers you want without having to torture him should you trust the information? Iruka was stunned and he walked up to Sakura's desk and looked at her test and said that's strange, how did you get the ABNU enrollment test? You're right Sakura, you got the wrong test. Does anyone else think they got the wrong test? Looking around the class. Mizuki walks through class calm, but inside he is seething Bekuus that test was for the demon brat as Mizuki calls him. He walks past all the test glancing at them all and stops in front of Naruto and grabs his test and Naruto said I was done already sensei, but I thought we had to wait until everyone finished before turning them in. Mizuki is pissed and he looks at the test and wads it up and said, you got the wrong test. Iruka walks up and grabs the wadded paper and looks at it and asked what are you talking about Mizuki, he got the same test as everyone else. Though he does not like Naruto he does not hate him either. He has started to see himself in Naruto, but it takes time. Mizuki looks at Iruka and said are you blind or something? That thing could not have already done this test. He must have cheated somehow. Iruka looked at the test and saw all the answers were correct and said I don't know Mizuki, can you prove it? Mizuki was royally pissed and said let's give him another copy of the test and watch him and see if he cheats. If he does not and still answers them then I will withdraw my complaint. Iruka sighs and walks down and gets another blank test and Sakura asks sensei, why do you doubt him? I meant don't we have a ninja honor code or something? I mean for Mizuki sensei to call him a cheater without any proof is like saying something stupid like him the Kyuubi or something. Without hard proof you can't just go around accusing people, right? Iruka is torn here and he thinks a moment and hands the blank test to Sakura and said here you go Sakura and sorry for giving you the wrong test and Naruto, even though Mizuki took you paper and wadded it up, I will count it since you got all the answers right and won't count against you for neatness since it was neat before. As for you Mizuki, I hate to say it but Sakura does bring up a good point. Unless you have proof don't accuse someone of something. As he walks back to the front of class and sits down only to hear a slap and looks up and sees Mizuki walking down the stairs rubbing his hand, and he looks back and sees Naruto with his head on his desk. Naruto was doing everything he could to hold back the tears he was feeling from that slap to the face he just got, so he hides it as he acts like he's trying to sleep. The class all looked up when they heard the slap, but though it was Mizuki hitting his hand in frustration, but not everyone did. A few students had their eyes narrowed at him. When Mizuki got to the bottom step he felt like his foot flew out from underneath him as he flew forward and hit the desk head first. Everyone looked at him and started to laugh, and even Naruto looked up and then looked back down, unable to smile because his face hurt. The few that had actually seen what Mizuki did were pissed that he would do something like that. Naruto had a big bruise on the side of his face, and his eye was already swelling. Even with Kyuubi healing abilities it would take a little while. The troublesome shadow user thought, how could he do that? Why do people hate him for so much? It's too troublesome to figure out, but I won't let something like that slide to a new friend. As he withdrew his shadow he used to trip him. Kyuubi wanted out of the cage to kill that man very badly. The rest of the kids finished taking fire test, and when about 45 minutes passed Iruka stood up and got the test since Mizuki had to leave to get checked out after his accident. Iruka sighed and said, okay class. Since Mizuki had to leave I will let you all go early today. Have fun. And all the kids started to leave. Naruto had pulled his mask over his face and covered his hair in his bandana and ran out the side door that led to the playground before anyone could say anything, and Naruto took off running until he made it to the top of the Hokage monument and he sat down and started to cry. He cried until he could not cry anymore when he felt a pair of arms come around him and he thought it was an attack, so he closed his eyes waiting for it, but it never came. The soft female voice said, let it go. I'm one of the sisters of the circle and we know what happened. It's okay to cry. And he did, unable to take it any longer. When he was out of tears he asked through a strained voice why. The soft voice behind him said, I can't tell you yet, but you don't deserve what him and the rest of this village has done. Know that there are those of us who care for you, Naruto-kun. Naruto started to turn around, but the arms grabbed his head, making it where he could not, and the voice said, not yet. I wish I could, but not yet because it's not time. No, we are watching and we'll do all we can to help, but we can't stop everything. I have to leave in a moment, but I want you to think on something and check out that training ground we told you about since you're almost there. Why do you want to get strong? And then the voice was gone. Naruto asked what? And looked behind him, but the person was gone and he thought to himself, why do I want to get strong? As he got up and walked toward where the training ground was supposed to be. 20 minutes later he found it and was awed by it, and then he remembered he had training to do so. He created a Kagebunshin who started to count as Naruto started to run a circle around the ground. After the 10th time he went around he stopped while panting and looked at the clone who was silent for a moment and it said average was 2 minutes and 10 seconds per lap. Naruto dispelled the clone but realized he dispelled the ones in his apartment also and he felt a little lightheaded for a moment and said shit, my bread's in the oven. And took off running toward his apartment as fast as he could. When he got there and opened his door he saw that the bread he was making was on the table and also half of it was gone and there was a note that said not bad but you need a little more practice on baking. You used too much salt. Other than that it was good. Naruto smiled as he read it and took a bite out of the bread that was sliced for him and he said yeah, just a little too much making it bitter, maybe I can add a little sugar to sweeten it next time. As he sat at the table and opened the scroll one of his clones was reading. Mizuki was not happy at the moment. When he got to the hospital he was told to wait and then a nurse walked up with brown hair and green eyes and she led him into a room to get checked out. He was fine until he felt himself pass out as she hit him in the neck. What made him not happy was when he awoke he was tied to a table and the doctors were working on him and he was not able to move or feel what they were doing, but he could hear what they said. The doctor sighed and said, how could this have happened? The nurse said, I don't know sir. When I found him in the room he was passed out so I started to do a check and that's when I found this. The doctor asked, how can a man have both of his testicles ripped off like that and not scream? Mizuki's eyes were wide opened and the nurse said, I don't know, but whoever did it knew what they were doing because he will never be able to have kids or even get it up aging. The doctor looked up and noticed Mizuki was awake and said sedate the patient. And the nurse who had brown hair and brown eyes walked up and knocked him out like he was before. That night Naruto fell asleep feeling better than he had in a long time, even though he did not know why, but it might be the fact that someone actually was truly kind to him or the fact someone hugged him besides the Hokage. The next few years flew by for Naruto. He was happier than he though possible. He still did not know who these sisters were, but they have given him food, cloths, and other things over the years. Him, Shikamaru and Choji had become real good friends. He even tied Shikamaru at Shoji once much to the lazy genius surprise. Him and Choji talked about cooking and food. On his birthday the villagers tried to get into his home but earned a nasty surprise. Every time they hit the windows they would not break and they tried to get in the door they got sent to Ibiki office somehow and Ibiki and Anko treated them right. His personal training had increased greatly. He had high Chunin level chakra control and he learned he could control wind pretty well and even knew a few wind jutsu that no one in Konoha knew besides Kakashi. His stamina, speed and strength were scary though no one knew it because he had gravity seals on that cut his strength back a lot. The Hokage was frustrated because he had not been able to find out who it is that is giving Naruto this stuff since he had Jiraiya track down Tsunade who denied knowing anything about it though from what Jiraiya said Shizune seemed on edge about it but he thought it might have had something to do with the fact she only had a towel on when he found them or the fact he had his hand on her towel. Sasuke was still the arrogant prick he always was and his fan club was still as strong as ever with Ino and Sakura the main spotlight. Naruto still did not know why he was hated or who his parents were, but he received a scroll that said he would learn after he passed the Genin test, so here he was waiting to receive his headband, having already passed with Kagebunshin's, much to Mizuki's dismay. Mizuki was so pissed it was not funny. After he was released from the hospital he tried to find other ways to get the demon child, but every time something would happen and screw it up. Either some boy or girl would ask about what he was doing since they saw he was in the wrong a lot or he would have a Jounin or Chunin come and take him away to ask about something totally stupid that he had no time to get him. He got the nickname Idiot Teacher because he acted so stupid sometimes. Naruto graduated about middle of the class much to everyone's surprise. What hurt him was he still did pranks every once in a while and skipped school to train, but since his book grades were 4th highest in class under Sakura, Ino and Hinata, he was not the dead last. It was the kid who broke his pencil that day Mizuki slapped him. His weapon skills were second only to Sasuke with 8 out of 10 on shurikens and 10 out of 10 on kunya and Sasuke had 10 out of 10 on shuriken and 9 out of 10 on kunya. His Genjutsu skills were a little surprise. He could cancel them and detect them no problem and cast a few low-level ones, but the harder ones were in his reach. He had also earned mid-Chunin level sealing, which was a real surprise to the Hokage since the only sealmaster Konoha had was Jiraiya. But the main surprise was that his taijutsu. He had 5 different styles merged together, which made it hard to defend against. The Hokage watched him spar with his shadow clones once and saw him use the Iron Fist which he asked Guy about, but he informed the Hokage that he had only been teaching Lee and he had not gotten far enough to teach anyone. Gentle Fist though he could not see where the chakra holes where he was close from his study of the human anatomy and since he had so much chakra he could still close off or destroy points, which since it was a Hyuga style, he had no idea how he got his hands on it. Snake dance which caused the Hokage to call Anko into his office, but she proved to him that she never even been near his apartment because someone had came and removed her curcecil while she was recovering from a fight with a missing nin. They put a tracking seal on her just for security reasons since no one knew who took the seal off of her which she agreed to, but it was taken off after 6 months. Naruto also had medical taijutsu which the third thought was from Tsunade, though she claims that she never met him, and the last one was the hummingbird which scared the Hokage the most because it was his father's personal taijutsu style and nobody knew how to use it and the only copy of it was in his vault. The Hokage does not know about the gravity seals. To the Hokage it was just one big mystery and he did not like mysteries. Especially when it came to Naruto. Naruto smiled as the rest of the kids took their test and either passed or failed. He was about to get up when a paper appeared on his desk, but the thing was he had no idea how it got there. It was like he did not see it there one moment and the next it was. He looked at it and read and all it said was go home and meditate until we meet you. No matter how hard it is to wait just do the meditation. When you find true peace we will tell you everything. Naruto sighed because he only tried to meditate once, but it never worked for him because something would always distract him, but he got up and walked home in his new cloths he got. He looked more like a Jounin than he did an academy student. He had on Abnu black pants, a black t-shirt with a red swirl on it. He had a black vest that had many pockets that he carried some supplies and sealing scrolls he made, as well as his face mask and bandana. He also had a black trench coat. If you try to imagine it, think of Kakashi with a biki coat and durag for his hair, but all black. When he got home he opened the door and stepped inside and walked over to a meditation mat he got 6 months ago and sat down on it and tried to meditate. After about 10 minutes he heard dripping and at first he tried to ignore it until a voice said welcome Naruto-kun. Causing Naruto to open his eyes and see a huge cage with a big red fox sitting behind it looking at him and Naruto instantly knew who it was. Naruto stuttered Kyuubi, but how? As he looked around trying to find out what was going on. Kyuubi sat down on its paws and said I guess you are wondering where you are, how I am here, why you are here, why did I attack, and who are the sisters of the circle right? Naruto was stunned and could only nod and Kyuubi sighed and said okay, first let me tell you about your parents. Naruto narrowed his eyes and asked what. Kyuubi said I want to start my explaining with them so you will not get lost when I tell you the rest. Your father was Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, and your mother was Uzumaki Kushina. Your father had a lot of enemies outside of the village, so the third changed your name to your mother's name, so that way they would not come and kill you. Are you up with me, kid? Naruto could only nod and then said with venom, so you killed my father. Kyuubi looked down and said no and yes. Naruto was confused and asked what do you mean no and yes? How can it be both? Kyuubi groaned and said, have you noticed the seal on your stomach? Naruto thought a moment and slowly nodded his head and Kyuubi said that seal is my prison. Making Naruto wide-eyed listening to it and then realized why everyone hates him. Naruto said so you are the reason I am hated. Kyuubi could only nod and Naruto got up and walked to the cage ready to hit the fox, but when he looked at the fox's eyes he stopped and asked why. Kyuubi expecting to be hit asked why what? Naruto narrowed his eyes and said I want to know everything starting with why you attacked and then explain why you said you are not the reason my dad is dead and then go from there. With mild restrained fury. Kyuubi said it started about 2 weeks before you were born. A man came into my land and killed my sisters and I only saw him for a moment but I would remember that face always. I started to track him down after I learned what he did but I could not find him. I stumbled across a man who had what you called a bingo book that lists not only missing nin, but also important ninja, and I saw a man I thought was the one who killed my sisters. I thought it was your father. Naruto watched Kyuubi as it told the story and asked so is it him? Clenching his fist. Kyuubi said no. It's his twin brother who is named Pain. I did not learn the truth until the moment your father was dying sealing me into you at the cost of his life. I later learned after I was sealed in you that Pain had hated your father for being famous and having everyone love him, so he framed him. If you're wondering how I know that I hear what you hear and see what you see. Naruto thought for a moment and asked so what's the story with these sisters then? Kyuubi smiled a small smile, but a glare from Naruto stopped the smile and said remember when I told you that my sisters were killed. Getting a nod from Naruto well they were not my sisters by blood. As you know I am a kitsune are all women Naruto got wide-eyed and I was the leader of them being the strongest. Each kitsune could make one new kitsune for each tail they had so I could make 8 and I did just that but I won't tell you when or how because you don't need to know that. Just know that they are the ones who have been helping you. Naruto sighed as he sat down and said so the only reason they have been nice to me is because they are like you. Kyuubi laughed making Naruto look at her and she said no silly. Each of the women that are kitsune only became kitsune to be with you because they each love you one way or another. Naruto scrunched his nose in confusion and asked what do you mean? Kyuubi sighed and said, each of them want to be your wife. Making Naruto wide-eyed. He stammered but how can that be? Kyuubi smiled and changed to a red-headed woman with red eyes and 9 tails behind her and said simple, as I said you have made each of us love you one way or another, even if you don't know it. You have a long life ahead of you, but your father did not know something when he sealed me into you. Naruto was curious and asked what do you mean? Kyuubi sat down and said the reason why kitsunes are always female is that when a male is born, he is automatically named Prince of the Foxes and since I was sealed in you that moment you became a kitsune and the new fox prince. As such you are now on your way to be the 10-tailed Lord of the Foxes and Lord of all demons, even though you were born human. You know how you have wind affinity right? Naruto nods trying to get around the fact he just learned he is the prince of all demons and Kyuubi said well, you also have affinity to all the other elements and higher sub-elements, but you have to train to use them. For each main element you master you will get 1 tail of power. Naruto looked at her and asked what do you mean? Kyuubi sighed and said okay you know how the Yondaime Hokage had the ability to use wood right? Well he had an affinity to water and earth. He also could use mud as another sub-category. Naruto thought for a moment and asked what about opposites like fire and water? Kyuubi smiled at how smart he had gotten and said steam. Naruto nods and asked lightning and earth. Kyuubi snickered and said metal. Naruto thought for a moment and said earth and wind. Kyuubi said sand. Naruto sighed and said so I have to get control of each of those elements before I get a tail of power. Kyuubi thought a moment and said right now you have about 2 tails worth since you had 1 for being a kitsune and your wind affinity. Naruto thought for a moment and asked what about the other 4 tails? Kyuubi smiled and said okay, after you have mastered all 5 main elements you will be a 6-tailed demon, but the other 4 are a little unusual. 1 is dark and another is light, and 1 is chaos. I don't know what the last one is though because only males can get it and I never even tried to find it out since the last male kitsune died nearly 6,000 years ago and I am only 2,000 years old. Naruto looked at Kyuubi and asked so how long will I and these others live then? Kyuubi seemed to think and said truthfully I don't know. You never truly know how long you are going to live so make each day special. Naruto sat and thought for a moment and asked who are they? Ayubi smiled and said that's where the fun is. I won't tell you. Naruto was wittied and asked what, why. Ayubi giggled and said simple, it's a game. We love you, but you have to find out who we are and you can't just come out and ask so are you a kitsune because people will think you're me or crazy and hurt you or them if they find out. Naruto sighed and asked so what now? Ayubi said simple. Your body is already getting used to its demonic side, but you will have to train and find my sisters. Naruto asked what about you? Ayubi smiled and said I am also one who wants to be your wife, but you have to pass 3 tests for me. Naruto asked what are they? Ayubi gave an evil grin and said simple, first you must find each of the other 8 kitsunes and pass whatever test they have for you to prove your love for them. After that you will have to earn all 10 tails. And then the last one is you will have to make me submit to you because I had to beat all of the other tail demons to be named leader of them since no male has been born in so long and I refuse to just hand over the title without you proving you are worthy of it. Naruto asked do I have a choice? Ayubi looked right into his eyes and said nope. The moment I was sealed in you your fate was sealed. It's not all bad as I said there are a total of 9 women who love you and want to be happy with you and be your family. I will help you when I think you need it but I won't help you always so train to use your own strength. Naruto nods and said okay, I get it. Ayubi smiled and said good luck and have fun. They each know that you know of us now so they will slip clues and it is your job Mr. Ninja to find out who they are. Note that age, village, location and time are meaningless. As far as you know they could be on the other side of the world or right next door, they could be a 90-year-old woman or a little 2-year-old girl. The only thing you can know for sure is each of us are strong and are woman. Know this. You have kept quick toward who you care for and who you love, so you will have to work to pass their test and some test could be going on without you even know it so good luck. Naruto blinked and found himself back in his apartment and he looked around and noticed that he had meditated the entire night and it was time to get up and ready for school. He got up and took a shower trying to get everything out of his mind of what he just learned but was having a hard time, but after getting dressed, he saw a picture of his mom and dad that had been looking at him for several years and he said I promise dad and mom, I will make you proud. As he got ready and left his home with a new look at the world. As he made it to the academy for the last time to meet his team, he walked into class and took his seat in the back of class and looked around and compared what he always saw against what he would see now. The noise brought his attention to the door and he saw Sakura walk in trying to shove the other one and then they both felt because the door was too small for 2 people at the same time. He sighed and looked around the class, ignoring the shouts from the female ninja when he heard his name called out. Sakura who was sitting beside Sasuke said why don't you go and sit by that loser Naruto or Shikamaru? We all know you and him have a thing. Ino screamed I do not have a thing for Shikamaru forehead. Sakura screamed take that back Ino pig, I look like a fox compared to a pig like you. Ino screamed in your dreams forehead, why don't you go home with your tail between your legs? Sakura screamed shut up Inopig, you jealous that I get to sit by Sasuke. Why would someone want to be with you when they could be with me? Ino just huffed and walked to the back of class and sat down next to Shikamaru. Naruto looked at both girls and thought that was strange. The flashback appeared in Naruto's mind. Iruka sighs and walks down and gets another blank test and Sakura asks Sensei, why do you doubt him? I meant don't we have a ninja honor code or something? I mean for Mizuki Sensei to call him a cheater without any proof is like saying something stupid like him the Kyuubi or something. Without hard proof you can't just go around accusing people, right? Then flashback. Naruto looked at Sakura and thought why would she have said she was Kyuubi all those years ago and now she refers to herself as a fox. Yeah she looks good, but her attitude is something unique. Another flashback appeared in his mind. When you learn who we are don't hate us because of our mask, because we may have to say something that may sound hateful, but it hurts us to say them because we care for you so please trust us and don't be mad. Then flashback. Naruto thought could she be one of the mask? This is confusing. Okay let me think about this for a moment. She calls herself a fox and Kyuubi. To anyone else that would be an insult, but if she was a kitsune then it would not be, but how do I prove it, I can't just go around accusing people. A snicker was heard from a few people in the room, making Naruto break his train of thought, trying to find out what was funny, but could not tell what it was. Just then Iruka walked into the class. Iruka screamed sit down and shut up. Getting everyone to take a seat. After he was satisfied he started okay today you join the world of ninja and that has a lot of responsibilities. Today you shall meet Ujounen and Sensei and find out who your teams are skip most team 7 will be Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura. Sakura asked, but Iruka Sensei. I thought the dead last of the class was always put with the rookie of the year. Iruka sighed and said normally you would be correct, but the council wants 3 specialty squads this year. A tracking team, an Asual team, and spy team so that's why the last 3 teams are made the way they are. Okay teammate, just like the show. An hour later, after everyone had fire lunches and Naruto had tried to find Sakura only for her to have disappeared, he walked back into the classroom and took his normal seat but was surprised when he saw a note on his desk. He picked it up and read, "A test to survive will be your downfall, whether it is your goal or your pride. Search for the bell and act as one team and not a team of one. If you do this, you will find you pass the test. To learn who the first sister of the circle is, take the one I most prized possession and give it to the person who is around you at the time who should be upset to receive that possession. Give it to that person and learn who one sister is and your future wife, though you will have to take her on a date and earn the right." Naruto looked at the note and put it away in a scroll and sat in thought for a moment, trying to figure out the question. He looked around and saw that most of the class was not back, yet he had no idea what the test of the bell was or the one eye. After a few moments, the door opened and a red-eyed woman and a man with a cig in his mouth walked in the class, and the man said, "Team 10 with me." The woman said, "Teammate, follow me." And both walked outside the class with both teammate and 10 both left. Naruto sighed and watched as all the other teams left until only team 7 was left. Naruto decided to get to know his team better, so he got up and walked down where Sasuke was brooding and Sakura was looking at Sasuke. Naruto sighed and said, "You guys want to talk and get to know each other better. I mean, we are on the same team and all." Sasuke looked at Naruto and said, "You are nothing but an annoyance. If you get in my way or slow me down, I will kill you." Naruto looked at him and sweat dropped before he looked at Sakura and said, "What about you, Sakura-chan? Would you like to get to know each other?" Sakura looked at Naruto and said, "I'm a lady, and from the way you are looking at me, I think you are a pervert and I hate anything perverted." And she went back to fawning over Sasuke. Naruto sighed and decided to try and talk to Kyuubi, so he sat down and started to meditate, but he found himself in front of Kyuubi in her cage. Naruto walked up and asked, "Hey Kyuubi. Can you help me out here?" Kyuubi smiled and said, "I can help you, but not with what you are thinking about. Let's work on your chakra control." Naruto sighed and said, "Alright. How do we work on it?" Kyuubi pointed to a wall in an outline of a person appeared, and inside the person there was blue squares, red squares and white circles, all spread out around the outline. Kyuubi said, "Okay, the blue squares are your chakra. The red squares are my chakra and the white circles are your wind elemental control. Every time you use your wind element, some more of those circles appear along with any other elemental jutsu you use. At first there is only a small amount, but the more you use them, the more that appear. This exercise is one you need to do every day you can to help your chakra control. As you see, there are a number of my chakras spread out in your body along with yours, and there is no order to them. What you need to do is convert my chakra into yours, and to do that you must move your blue squares to surround one red square, and after it is completely surrounded, then it will convert to blue. Every day more of my chakra will leak into your body thanks to the seal, so if you don't work on it every day, then your control will slip. It takes time to do it, but the less of my chakra in your system, the more powerful your chakra will get along with the amount you have. Now the elemental chakra is different. What you must do is move them together, and when they get together they will merge together and form a new circle. Do you understand?" Naruto thought as he looked at it and said, "Yes. It's like a game I saw some kids play when I was younger." As he walked over to it and then started moving the squares around, and after about 20 minutes he finally got one red square surrounded and he watched as it turned blue. Naruto smiled and blinked and he saw that Sasuke and Sakura were both looking at him and he asked, "What?" Sasuke muttered, "Idiot," and pointed to the door, and Naruto looked and saw a man with one eye covered and Sakura said, "Come on. He said he wanted us to meet on the roof." As she walked by him following Sasuke. Naruto sighed and got up and followed after them, but stopped as he thought about his note he had and thought, is he the one eye? And continued up to the roof. When they got there, Naruto saw the man with his face buried in a book and he said, "Now that you're all finally here, let's begin with introductions." Sakura said, "Why don't you go first to show us how it's done, pervert?" The man crinkled his one eye and said, "My name is Hada Kakashi and I like many things and dislike many others, and my dreams for the future are none of your concern. You're next, Pinky." Sakura growled and said, "My name is Sakura and I like medical jutsu and my precious people. I dislike perverts and those who hurt those precious to me. Dreams of the future. Being one with the man I love." As she had stars in her eyes. Kakashi sighed and thought, "Fangirl." And he pointed to Sasuke. Sasuke said, "My name is Sasuke. I am an avenger. I don't have dreams, but I have a goal. To kill my brother and restore my clan." Kakashi nodded and pointed to Naruto as he puts his book into his pouch and then pulls out a couple of pieces of paper. Naruto seemed to think for a moment and smirked before he put his hands together and 4 Kagebunshin appeared and 3 of them hinged into copies of Sasuke, Kakashi and Sakura, and the last one stayed as him. They each sat down beside each person they looked like, and the Kakashi clone reached into his pouch and pulled out a copy of Kakashi book and said in Kakashi voice, okay, we have her Avenger who thinks only of himself and all the guys are wondering if he's gay, since he won't look at any of his fangirls, a girl who seemed to have a reasonable dream and may have a future in her chosen skills, and don't forget me the perverted teacher. Now the last student I shall introduce since Hess beside himself like everyone else here. His name is Naruto Uzumaki. Blessed and cursed depending on how you look at it, and as far as he knows his family is dead, but he dreams he got some secret admirer somewhere, but who knows. Anyways, that's all for today. Dismissed. And each of the clones of Team 7 walked over the balcony and jumped off, and several popping sounds were heard. Kakashi said, well, that's interesting. Anyways, tomorrow there will be a survival exercise at 6 AM at the Memorial Stone. Don't eat or you will throw up. Saya. And he left in a swirl of leaves. Naruto burst out laughing as his other two teammates looked at him, and Sasuke asked, what's so funny, dope? Naruto pointed to the balcony where the clones jumped off, and one walked back over the balcony and over to Naruto and handed him a pink book, and Naruto said, I think since you hate perverts, you should have the honor of Sensei's book. Handing Sakura Kakashi book. Both his teammates looked at him, and Sasuke asked, how did you get that? Naruto said, when I created my Kagebunshin I had created 6 in actuality. The 4 you saw up here and 2 hanging on the side of the building. I had one henge into that book at the same time as I had everyone distracted with my ones up here henging and had the other one replace the book with the one in Kakashi pouch. I then had my Kakashi clone reach into his pouch and pull out the book that had been replaced with a kunya from its pouch, and then he pulled out Kakashi actual book. The rest you can say is history. Both of his teammates were stunned, and Sakura asked, well, why did you give this to me? Naruto said, well, I could say a fox told me, but the truth is with your blatant hatred for perverts, I figured if I want to get to know you better, I can ask you on a date, but I should try and impress you first and show you I am not a pervert. Sasuke fed and said, you are a waste of time and effort. If you got time to talk you got time to train. And he left. Naruto looked at Sakura who was watching him leave and started to follow him, and Naruto asked, so, how about you let me take you to lunch? Sakura stopped and said, sure Kitsune, but not until after our test tomorrow. You still have to pass that part. And she left ignoring the smile that was hidden behind the mask Naruto had pulled up after Iruka left the class. Naruto smiled and thought, so she's one, huh? I wonder how much of her is an act and how much is real. As he left to go to his apartment. Naruto went home and went to fix him something to eat, and after eating he meditated some more and soon started working on the chakra board of his body. Deciding to work on one area at a time, he started with the legs. Naruto worked on it for hours, and when he finally got a half of one leg done, he passed out from mental exhaustion. Naruto awake at 7 AM and frowned and quickly grabbed an apple and ate it on his way to the training ground. When Naruto got there he was surprised that Sasuke was brooding. No, that was not what surprised him. Sakura had changed her appearance to match her cloths to that of what she wore in Shippendo, and she looked hot and also ready for a fight. Naruto walked over to where she was and Sakura turned and smiled and said, well, Naruto. Are you ready for this? I don't want to see you hold back any. I want to see what you really can do. Naruto smirked and said, deal. But the same goes for you. I got the feeling you're better than you let on. Sakura grabbed her heart and said in a mock tone, why would little old me fake my true skills? Sasuke said, you are both idiots. Naruto and Sakura both shot him a glare, and Naruto asked, so are you going to tell me about any others? Sakura smiled and said, nope. I only gave you clues for the last 5 years, but I may or may not have been the only one. Naruto sighed and said, so are you going to tell me how you met her? Sakura said, only after you find the others will you learn the truth. The voice from above them said, the truth about what? Making all three look up and see Kakashi sitting there with a pissed look. Sakura said, the truth that Naruto has his own fan club among the females ninja, and because of his little friend we hid the truth, but unlike the Avenger, Naruto is a decent guy. Much like his father was from what I heard. Kakashi eye was wide and said, and who is Naruto father and what little friend are you talking about? I thought Naruto was an orphan and everyone avoided him. Sakura said, 2 names left and 1 up from your teammate's name. I still don't see how adult can't figure it out. He's basically a carbon copy of his dad. And as for his friend. A lot of people have loose lips. Especially on his birthday. Only reason I said anything is because of how you feel, son of the White Fang. You know you need a new picture in the bingo book. The one they have makes you look like a kid. Sasuke asked, what are you idiots talking about? Are we going to test or what? Naruto said, yeah, take the kunya out of your ass. Anyways, are we going to start sensei? Kakashi was getting over his shock about hearing not only did Naruto know about his tenant, but also his father and said, right. The mission is to get these 2 bells from me. If you don't get a bell you get set to the academy. You have until noon. Come at me with the intent to kill. Ready, begin. And Sasuke jumped into the bushes to hide, while Naruto and Sakura stayed where they were. Naruto smiled and said ladies first. Well, he motioned with his hand. Sakura smiled and pulled on a pair of black gloves and said don't blame me if there's nothing left. As she looked at Kakashi before drawing her fist back and slamming it into the ground. In the Hokage office the third was brought out of his reading, as well as his 2 Kagebunshin, when an earthquake hit Konoha. The third raised his eyebrow and thought is Tsunade here? And he pulled out his crystal ball and started scanning in the direction the earthquake came from and furrowed his eyebrows as he looked at the destroyed training ground and a ghost white Kakashi and a wide-mouthed Naruto, both looking at Sakura who was bringing her fist out of the ground. He thought oh hell, another Tsunade. Naruto looked at the damage and Sasuke was shaking in both fear and awe in his tree. Kakashi was praying to stay out of her reach. Sakura smirked and said okay Naruto-kun, I anted up, now it's time to see are you in or out. Naruto won not to back down from a challenge, put his hands in a ram seal and said Kia. Everyone was looking at him when he did that and then he was gone. Kakashi only dodged a strike to the ribs becus of years of training agent's guy. He jumped away from the super fast Naruto and quickly uncovered his Sharingan. Naruto narrowed his eyes and asked are you in Uchiha? Sasuke was wide-eyed in the tree he was hiding in. Sakura said no, from what I learned he got it from his teammate who died during the war. We can't play around anymore Naruto-kun. It's time to take it to him. Any jutsu we use now he can copy and counter. The only advantage we have is speed training and taijutsu agents that Yo Sasuke. We need to work as a team to win or we all go back to the academy and you can forget about killing Itachi. You in or out? Sakura smirked as Sasuke jumped out. Anyone who says the words kill Itachi instantly has his support. Sasuke smirked and started to do hand sign and Naruto saw that it was a fire technique from the first hand sign and started doing a wind technique as well. Kakashi saw Sasuke doing the hand sign for a fire-style fireball jutsu and started to do the hand signs for a water dragon. When Sasuke breathed out his fireball Naruto said wind-slide gale force jutsu. And it caught Sasuke fireball making it bigger and also faster as it crashed into Kakashi water dragon, but during this attack, Sakura had grabbed a huge slab of earth and threw it behind the fireball, so while the steam was covering the area, thanks to the 3 jutsu Kakashi had just barely enough time to replace himself when a huge slab of earth destroyed the log he had switched places with. He was brought out of his thoughts by a shout of Kamitachi and several wind blades came at him. He replaced himself agent only to find himself being caught with ninja wire from Sasuke who had tied it to a couple of shurikens. Kakashi had to replace himself agent. He was starting to get pissed so he appeared in front of all 3 and was prepared for an attack from behind when the unthinkable happened. It would later be told that Kakashi was knocked out by an S-rank jutsu that all information about it was secured in the Forbidden Scroll. When Kakashi went to attack he went to attack Sakura but when he had hit her she went up in smoke. As the smoke cleared there stood 25 blonde-haired nude girls and to the horror fantasy of his life, also Kakashi female Gen and teammate Rin all completely nude. Kakashi was sent flying backward from blood loss not only knocking himself out but also the Jaisir had blown his face mask off. When all 3 genin had walked over to him and Naruto looked at Sakura, he thought how the hell did she know how to do my sexy no jutsu and why would she do it also? I thought she hated perverts. Sakura giggled and said I do, but that jutsu works against perverts like him. That's why. As she looked at Kakashi's face. She reached down and got the bells tossing one to both Naruto and Sasuke and said I always thought his face would look different. Besides being a little pale from being behind a mask I can't see anything wrong with it. Naruto was wide-eyed and asked can you read my mind? Sakura said no. I just learned to read your body language and put it together. Naruto heard giggling in the back of his head but chose to ignore it for now and he got an idea and pulled out a water balloon that he had sealed in a scroll and held it above Kakashi and used what he had been working on for a few months now from a scroll and popped it above Kakashi and the water fell down soaking him and waking him up. Kakashi groaned and rubbed his face and felt his mask gone and quickly put it on and stood up and saying Naruto and Sasuke who looked pissed holding a bell and Kakashi said so does anyone know what the secret to this test was? Naruto and Sakura both said teamwork. Kakashi nods and asked why do you believe that Naruto? Naruto said I read something once that said you should act as one team and not a team of one. Kakashi nods and asked what about you Sakura? Sakura said simple, those who follow the rules are trash, but those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. Kakashi was stunned by those two and he looked at Sasuke and said, what about you Sasuke? What do you think was the meaning of this test? Sasuke said to get the bells. Since Sakura does not have a bell she goes back to the academy. Naruto said no. If anyone does it's me. And handed the bell to Sakura. Kakashi sighed and said Sasuke, you failed this test. Both Sakura and Naruto figured out the real test, and when they had you help them they completed the mission. Anyways, Team 7 passes thought just barely for you Sasuke. Meet here tomorrow at 7 AM and don't be late for our first mission. Sasuke looked at Naruto and Sakura and said fight me. Naruto said no. And he turned to look at Sakura. Sakura said Sasuke, we are teammates now, not enemies oh no. And she turned and started to walk away. Sasuke was pissed and he went to grab Sakura and make her face him when she turned and punched him sending him flying toward the Hokage monument. Naruto was floored by her strength and asked if I say something wrong, you're not going to do that to me are you? Sakura smiled and said no. There's an old saying that if you don't learn from the past then you are doomed to repeat it. My life as a fangirl was a mistake at first and a mask later. I learned from it, but Sasuke feels that because of his bloodline then he should be treated as a god. I can't stand that kind of attitude. So do you want to go eat? I am sure you have a lot of questions. Naruto smiled and said, how about I cook for you? Sakura said sure and they both started to walk toward Naruto apartment. A few moments later Kakashi appeared in front of them and said the Hokage would like to speak to both of you. And he put a hand on both their shoulders and left in a swirl of leaves. They all three appeared in the Hokage office and the third looked at them and said Naruto, Sakura, it's good to see you both. I am sorry for interrupting your time, but I got a few questions that I need answered if you both don't mind. Naruto was confused but said sure old man. What would you like to know? The third asked so how long have you know who your parents are in the Kyuubi? Naruto sighed and heard Kyuubi in his head telling him to repeat what she said well, I was reading about seals and since I noticed my seal and I realized that there must be something powerful sealed in me. I then thought about my life and all the hatred and all the names I hear people call me and then when I heard Mizuki call me Kyuubi Brad under his breath, once I knew what it was. As for my parents. I saw a little kid drawing last year on my birthday of the Yondaime, but the kid had put whiskers on the drawing and it looked exactly like me. Then I realized what that lady meant when she said that the Yondaime and his wife would be looking at me and are proud of what kind of man I become. I don't know my mom's first name, but I figured her last name was Uzumaki and that's where you got it from. The third sighed and said you're smarter than you let on Naruto. Yes to all of your question. Your father was Minato Namikaze and your mother was Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto nods and the third looked at Sakura and asked so how did you know Sakura? Sakura said well, after me and some friends started to question why we saw Naruto getting treated the way he was we started piecing it together. His birthday along with people's cold stared and words were enough for us to figure out the Kyuubi and then we heard some people talking about the killing the demon instead of sealing and we questioned why Naruto was chosen and similar to Naruto during the Kyuubi festival, someone had taken a doll of the Kyuubi and the Yondaime and put the Yondaime's head on Kyuubi body and put the whiskers on his face with a kunya in a chest. It was not too hard to figure out when you saw something like that. The third sighed and said so much for S-rank secrets. Can you please tell me who these friends of yours are Sakura that know this? Sakura sighed and said I'm sorry but I can't. The third asked and why not? Sakura sighed and said we each like Naruto and have made a challenge to not only help him with his ninja training, but also our own. It was decided that whoever was on his team would be the first to let clues slip to it and since I was assigned to his team, then I would be the first to reveal. We don't want Naruto to think that we are easy or that we just respect him and want to be close to him because of his father or Kyuubi or anything else. We want to do it because he is a nice guy and deserves friends and more. Kakashi was watching all of this and asked Sakura, if you don't mind me asking. How did you learn to use that super strength? Sakura chuckled and said I want to be a medic nin, so I started researching Tsunade since she's the best medic nin and I have through trial and error gotten the secret of her strength down, but I still got years before I can reach her level. Kakashi nodded and looked at Naruto and asked how did you get so fast? Naruto scratched the back on his neck and said seals. Both the third and Kakashi looked at him and the third asked what do you mean Naruto? Naruto sighed and said I have been using gravity seals for over 3 years now. Every time I get used to the weight I increase the chakra. As he showed the seal over his heart and ignoring the blush Sakura had on her face. Kakashi saw it but chose to ignore it. The third was stunned but let it slide not having anything else to say. He knew Naruto mysteriously got a lot of help when he was 7 and Naruto had shown such great potential. He looked at Sakura and asked so, how long have you known who Naruto really was? Sakura thought for a moment and said I think I first figured out about the fox when I was 5 and then about his dad when I was 9. The third sighed and said I wish to thank you for being acceptive of him. Sakura nods and asked a question that would make all future discussion a new subject. She asked since Naruto is the last of his clan will he fall under the clan restoration law like the Uchiha? That is a question my friends and I were wondering about. Everyone looked at her and the third asked why would you like to know that? Sakura smiled and said I will tell you this. There are 9 of us that want to one day marry Naruto. Anyone who can make it through the hell he has and still smile and try to be nice to everyone would not only make a great husband but a good father also. With confidence in her voice. The third said you do realize you are only 14 years old Sakura. Sakura said, and I am also a ninja and I don't mean today Hokage-sama. I know ninja who want to have a family have to start younger than civilians. I already know that along with my friends. I am not ready yet to have a family, but I know that I will want one sooner than some. The third sat quietly for a moment looking at Sakura and then at Naruto, who seemed to be in deep thought, and said I will say this now Sakura. The answer is yes, but he won't be able to marry you or anyone else until he is a chunin or has become financially stable to begin a clan. He can't get his inheritance until he passed both of those or he becomes 16 years old. Sakura nods and said I understand. I asked that you not mention any of this to anyone also Kakashi or Hokage-sama. I care for Naruto as do my friends, but my mother as you know is one of the closed-minded idiots in this village. I have acted like Sasuke fangirl for years just to keep her from finding out the truth. Kakashi chuckled and said, you must really love Naruto then because everyone in the village has you and Ino as 2 of his most devoted fangirls. Sakura smiled and said yes. A ninja life is built around deception. Don't you agree Naruto? Naruto blinked for a moment seeming to be in his thoughts and when he looked up something was different about him and he said yeah. It's just taking a little to get used to someone actually caring for me. In a sad tone. Kakashi said well, I guess I should get going. I got to get a new copy of my book after you stole it yesterday Naruto. Naruto smiled and said I did not steal your book. The last time I saw your book you had your hand on it when you jumped over the balcony. The third laughed as Kakashi said, but that was a clone hinged into me. Naruto said so you admit it was you that took your book. Kakashi said you do know that I am your sensei and I can make your life hell. Naruto snorts laughing and then stops and looks down and said, you know what dawned on me a moment ago. If I had to guess the only reason Sasuke and I are on the same team is someone felt that you having his bloodline would make you perfect for teaching him and adding me to it was either a request by you because of who my dad was or by the council who ordered you to focus on Sasuke in the hopes that I would be killed the first time out of the village. As he sat down in a chair ignoring the looks he was receiving. Kakashi asked what makes you say that Naruto. Ignoring the fact that he was right about the council. Naruto sighs and said I'm not an idiot Kakashi. I can tell that the only thing that's kept me alive until now has been the old man there. Sakura asked Iruka in class why was the rules changed this year away from the rookie of the year and the dead last put together and he said there were to be 3 specialized teams. A tracking team which would be Kiba team, a spy team which would be Ino since she can enter people's minds and an assault team. With all the times Mizuki tried to make me fail in the academy and the looks I received when I walked out of the academy with a headband anyone can see they were not happy about me passing and would never put me on an assault team because they're scared of me. They say they want an assault team but they won't put Sasuke in a situation that can get him killed because they love bloodlines. They put me on Sasuke team hoping I would take the killing blow for the Uchiha and I suspect that they have Sakura because of her fangirl devotion that she hid behind would do the same. I know the moment the old man here is replaced my ass is the first on the chopping block. It's the same reason why Sakura and her friends have to remain secretive about being friends with me or possible more. Naruto got up ignoring stun looks everyone was joining him and Naruto said with his back to them Sakura. I appreciate what you and your friends have done for me but I can't see you throwing your life away for me. Nobody but us knows this so I ask you. Please don't throw your life away for me. I'm not worth it. And he left out the door. Sakura was so stunned she did not know what to say. Kakashi sighed and said what happened. The third said I don't know. Sakura sighed and said it's sad but Hess right. He just summed up exactly what would happen. The third asked what makes you and Naruto so sure about that. Sakura said Kakashi, before today did you know Naruto was your sensei son? Kakashi scratched the back of his head and said no. Sakura nods and said and if you had to choose between a fangirl, a dead last idiot who looks like your sensei and is a constant reminder of him who happens to have the killer of your sensei in him and the last connection you have to a member of your genin team who gave you his eye who happens to be the rookie of the year. Which would you have trained the most especially when the council tells you to spend time with Sasuke because has a flight risk? As she got up and walked to the door. She stopped and said, you would have honored Obito memory and focused on the easiest one who reminds you of yourself. Hell I bet you would even teach him the Chidori as a way to bond. As she left the room. Both men were stunned and the third asked how the hell did those two get so perceptive. Kakashi could not answer. Both Naruto and Sakura had hit too close to home. He realized that he would have left them alone and focused on Sasuke. That thought made him feel even more terrible now that he knew Naruto was his sensei son. Sakura had left the Hokage office and thought where is he at? She heard Kyuubi say he's currently in his apartment crying. I don't know what happened, but suddenly his mind played all the scenes together and made him believe that if he wants to protect you, then he needs to keep you away. I still wonder sometime how his logic works. Another voice in her head asked, can you handle it, Sakura, or do you need some of us to help? I can be there in about 20 minutes. Sakura thought, no, I can handle it, but don't kill me if he becomes a pervert. With a smile on her face. A scream in her head said, don't you think about going past first base, Sakura. Sakura snickered as she approached Naruto apartment building. A few minutes later she was standing outside his door and she looked both ways and bit her thumb and wiped blood on the door, opening it and walking inside, quietly closing it behind her. She looked around and saw he still kept his place pretty neat as she slipped her shoes off and smiled at that way his apartment was kept, and walked toward Naruto's bedroom and saw him laying on his bed in the fetal position with his back to her, and she frowned and walked over to the bed and sat down beside him. Naruto stiffened and opened his tired eyes, and Sakura said, you are an idiot. Don't you think me and the others know what it's going to be like for us? Yes, a lot of people are going to hate you and us, but we knew that before we made our choice. Naruto asked, what choice was it and why did you chose it? Sakura sighed and said, I want to tell you a story. Naruto looked at her as he laid on his bed. Sakura smiled, noticing she had his undivided attention, and said, there once was a man who would do anything for his precious people. One by one the list of people on that list grew and grew. He became a hero and respected warrior all across the world. He helped the lives of many and changed them for the better. After many years a battle was held between the hero and a man that was evil. The hero and the evil both fought for 3 days straight until the hero killed the evil, but believing he had nothing left to live for died as well. When the hero was dead, those he had saved in his life came together and at the side of his grave made a pact. The pact was to ensure the hero's life was the best it could be and for him to finally find the love he longed for his entire life. They loved him for different reasons, but they all agreed that they loved him. That was how the circle of the sisters was first made. Naruto listened and said, so you all chose to become sister of the circle just like the woman who wanted to honor the hero. Why choose me? Sakura giggled and said, because you are the hero. Naruto was stunned and asked, what do you mean I'm the hero? Sakura sighed and said, you see, Naruto. You know how I along with the others know of Kyuubi, right? Naruto said, yeah, you're all kitsune somehow, but I don't really understand. Sakura nods and said, well, what happened is Kyuubi was freed by you. Naruto blinked and blinked again and asked, why would I do that? Sakura looked at him and said, remember how I said you were fighting an evil man? That man was your uncle. The one who killed Kyuubi's sisters and is a man that will be coming after you. We each had to watch helpless as you faced him and his followers to the point that when it was over, there was nothing we could do. You forgave Kyuubi and gave her freedom before the fight. She had seen everything that you seen and heard, and so she knew that we each had feelings for you. We may have not at first, but as time went we did. The man you became who we each wanted to live with for all eternity. Kyuubi offered us a chance. A chance to not only make your life better but to prepare you and also stand beside you during the trials ahead. That is why we love you. We see the man you are now and we also know the man you will become. You are already becoming him by your actions today. Your wish to protect us from harm. Naruto was stunned and said, so you all came from the future. Sakura smiled and said, yes, but we don't know everything that's going to happen. We know a few things, but we are just going to act the way we think is best and pray for everything to work out. Naruto looked at her with more interest and asked, so what is the future like? Sakura's smile faded and said, all I can tell you is that you will have to train a lot, but the more of us you discover, the more that will be able to not only help you train, but also teach you other skills to increase your fighting skills. What we hope is when your uncle starts to make his move you will be Hokage level or stronger. With a smile returning on her face. Naruto sighed and said, so are you going to give me any clues as to who any are? Sakura said nope. And she grabbed him and pulled him into a kiss, shocking him. When Naruto's eyes returned to normal he closed them and deepened the kiss. After a few moments they broke their kiss and Sakura sighed as she looked at the clock. She got up and said, I hate to say it, but I have to leave. My mother will want to hear about my test today. I think I will tell her I got a boyfriend or maybe not. As she winked at Naruto as she left the room. A few moments later Naruto heard the door close and he sighed. Naruto got up and went to take a shower but stopped when he walked into the living room. He looked around thinking he sensed something, but after looking around and finding nothing he went into the bathroom. A few moments after the water turned on, Naruto heard the door to his apartment close again and walked out and saw it was empty again and thought someone was here besides Sakura. As he walked back into the bathroom to finish taking a shower. Outside his apartment door a brown-eyed girl was walking away with a faint blush on her face, along with a smirk on her face. When Naruto got ready to leave the next morning he noticed something he never seen before. A sword was sitting on a stand by his door. Naruto had not done any sword training. He picked it up and saw a note on it. He read, "Hello Naruto-kun, this sword is unique. It was designed so only you could use it or one of your children. Anyone else tries to use it and it will shock them. I am the second sister you will have to meet. The sheath of this sword has a picture on it. The picture is a location in Konoha. Find it and go there at dawn. I will be there for 30 minutes each day until you find me. Bring this sword and try and practice with it. When you can last 30 minutes against me in a Kenjutsu battle I will tell you my name." Naruto sighed and looked at the picture. It was a picture of a training ground, but unlike most training ground there were 4 training logs. Naruto tried to recall any training ground like that but could not think of any. Strapping the sword on his back after getting ready he went to Team 7 training ground. He made it there about 20 minutes later and Sasuke was sitting there waiting and Sakura was currently walking on water while practicing katas. Naruto smirked and created 50 Kagebunshin and had them walk on water with 10 of each working on the 5 taijutsu styles he knew, while the real Naruto walked to a training log and took the sword out of its sheath and started doing slashes into a log, trying to get the feel of it. After about 10 minutes one of his clones said, "You're using medic taijutsu Sakura." Sakura stopped and looked at the clone and smiled and said yeah. The clone said, "How about a little spar? The 10 of us against you." Showing the 10 that used medical taijutsu. Sakura said deal. As she got a glint in her eye. Sasuke's jaw was sore from yesterday, said you're both idiots. Chapter 3. After about an hour of working on his sword and Sakura going back to water walking and working on her taijutsu and Naruto other clones water walking and using the other 4 styles he knew, Kakashi showed up. Kakashi said yo. Everyone looked at him and Sakura looked confused for a moment but shrugged. Sasuke said, "So Kakashi, what are we going to do today?" Kakashi said, "Well. I already went to the Hokage office and we are to catch the Fire Lord's cat Tora." Sakura looked at him and asked, "Can we kill her?" Naruto sheathed his sword and put it back on his back and Kakashi said, "Nope. In fact I have a challenge for you. Today we are having a competition with another genin team. It's a speed test to see who can track down and capture the cat the fastest." Sakura paled and said in a pleading voice, "Tell me you did not get Team Guy. Please." Kakashi smiled and said, "Yes I did. I figured with Naruto showing so much speed yesterday that I need to get you all up to that speed, so why not compete against the fastest team around?" Naruto smiled and said, "That don't sound so tough, Kakashi-sensei." Sakura looked at him and asked, "Are you an idiot? That team is as fast as you are without your weights on while they have theirs on." Kakashi looked at Sakura and said, "You have a lot of info on the other team, Sakura. Care to tell us how?" Sakura said, "To try and learn medic skills better I followed a medic team around for a week when I was in the academy. I met some of the other teams which is how I learned water walking. Besides, who can't hear Team Guy?" Kakashi shuddered as an imaginary flames of youth rant went off in his head. Ever since the previous night he vowed to himself he would teach all 3 to the best of his abilities. Naruto and Sakura had both hit home on Thaya rants. Kakashi said, "Anyways. Let's go to training ground 22 so we can meet them and get this mission started." As he started leading his 3 students toward Team Guy training ground. On the way a thought struck Kakashi and he said, "Naruto, why did you use wind jutsu during the test?" Naruto said, "It's my affinity." Kakashi nods and asked, "Do either of you know what your affinities are?" Sakura said, "Yeah, I'm water and Sasuke is fire with a touch of lightning." Sasuke looked at her and asked, "How do you know that, Sakura?" Sakura sighed and said, "That idiot Mizuki instead of giving me a test once gave me each student elemental affinities." Sasuke fed and acted like he did not care. Naruto snickered and said, "I would actually like to see that idiot quit being a shinobi. Not only does he screw up handing out tests, think people are taking the wrong test, hits his students, but also bipolar." Sakura said, "There's times I think you are bipolar also, Naruto." Kakashi held his amusement as he saw they were walking on the training ground and he yelled, "Yo Guy." Getting everyone's attention. Naruto looked around the field and went wide-eyed as he pulled his sword off his back and looked at it before he looked at the field. He put the sword on his back and looked around and saw a girl with her hair up in a set of buns picking up weapons. Naruto was about to say something when Sakura said, "Naruto, I know what you're thinking and cool your jets. Remember what the note said and follow it. It might or might not be her, so stop from embarrassing yourself. Besides it could all be a coincidence." Naruto nods and suddenly a green blur shot past him and a boy with a bowl cut and green spans appeared and he said, "Hello there lovely young maiden. I am Rock Lee and I will protect you with my life. Would you do me the honor of telling me your name?" As he held Sakura's hand. Sakura shook his hand and squeezed it enough to make Lee wide-eyed and said, "I am able to protect myself and I am also taken, but my boyfriend is a secret. I will tell you my name to be friends and that is Sakura Haruno." As she let go his hand and he rubbed it. Lee said, "Then I am honored to meet you, Sakura, and I hope we can share our flames of youth one day." Naruto scrunched his nose and asked Flames of Youth. What's that? I screamed, oh my hip rival. How can you deny your most youthful students the knowledge of youth? Tell me, young sir, what is your name? Naruto looked at Guy and said, you say something. As he rubbed the ringing in his ears away. Kakashi dropped his book looking at Naruto and smiled behind his mask, and before Guy could say anything Tenten said, hey you, the boy with the sword. Are you any good with it? Naruto took it off his back and said yeah, why? As he pulled it out of its sheath. Tenten looked at it and narrowed her eyes and walked over and punched Naruto in the face, much to the shock of everyone. Naruto dropped his sword and asked as he was rubbing his face, why the hell did you punch me? I said yes Tenten, why did you punch this most youthful student? Tenten said Hess lied to me just then. I can tell by the way he held the sword as well as the way he moved with it, as well as the condition the sword is in, he does not know shit about swords. I hate people to lie to me about weapons. Naruto went to grab his sword, but Tenten kicked it away and said, you are not worthy of a blade like that. Naruto went to walk by her to get it, but she moved to get in his way. I said Tenten, please stop this. It is most unyouthful. Tenten said I won't stop Guy. This boy here is nothing but a poser with a sword. He thinks because he has a sword Hess automatically good with it. If he wants it Hess got to get by me to get it. Naruto stopped and looked at her, and Sakura said please Tenten, that's your name right, don't do this. We have a mission. Tenten looked at Sakura and said stay out of this Pinky. This is between me and MR. Poser here. Naruto said fine, how about a challenge then? You claim I am a poser, then fight me. Tenten smiled and said fine, but the only thing you can use is that. Pointing to the sheath of the sword that was in his hand. Naruto said, but that's not a weapon. Tenten said yes it is if you know how to use it. No ninjutsu. Just kenjutsu. If you can get past me and retrieve your sword you can have it, but if I make you give up you will surrender the sword to me until you are worthy of having it. Is it a deal? Naruto said deal. As he held the sheath like it was a sword trying to figure out how to use it. Sakura slapped her forehead and said idiot, you just got tricked Naruto. Naruto was about to say something when Tenten pulled out a scroll and unsealed a standard katana. Before he even had a chance to say or do anything, Tenten was trying to take his head off with her sword and he ducked out of the way as she reversed the swing to get him on the backside of the attack. Naruto had to jump away as she went for an uppercut swing with the sword. As Naruto began his game of dodging, Sasuke said, shouldn't you stop this Kakashi-sensei, we do have a mission. Kakashi said no, the cat can wait a few minutes. I want to judge Naruto's skills and this is why we came here today to work on our skills. I only planned on speed, but now I think it might be better to have both you and Sakura spar against other two students. What do you say Guy? I said yes, that is a most youthful idea. Niji, you spar with Sakura and Lee you spar with Sasuke. Sakura said what's the rules as she pulled on her gloves. I said pure taijutsu. Sakura smiled and Kakashi paled and said Guy, about that, I don't think that's a good idea. I mean Sakura. Sakura said we'll be fine Kakashi-sensei. Let's see how I do agents to Hyuga. With a smile on her face. I said I am sorry Kakashi, but I don't have anyone else to put her against at the moment since she's not strong enough to match Lee currently and Tenten is sparring with Naruto. Sakura looked darkened and said on second thought Kakashi-sensei, let me fight Lee instead. I got wide-eyed and said no, I refuse to let a delicate blossom as yourself fight Lee. Kakashi said it's fine Sakura, go ahead and fight Lee. I looked at Kakashi who said trust me Guy, I feel sorry for Lee in this match if Sakura lands a hit. I said, but. Lee said it's alright Guy-sensei. I want to see how strong she is. I said Lee, not you also. As he looked at his favorite student. Sakura said ready when you are Lee. Lee said, ladies first. Sakura smirked and jumped in the air and grabbed her leg and Tenten looked at them out of the corner of her eye as she was leading Naruto through the fight and screamed Lee, get out of there before it's too late. As she stopped drawing everyone's attention to Sakura who was starting to come down. Sakura screamed Titanic leg drop. As she approached the ground in front of Lee. Lee taking Tenten's warning to heart jumped back just before impact and when Sakura foot hit the ground, it created a 50 feet crater shocking everyone. I whose eyes nearly fell out said that's Tsunade's strength. Kakashi said now you see why I tried to warn you. I nods and Sasuke who had yet to do anything narrowed his eyes and thought I must learn how she did that. Naruto whose eyes were wide at it turned to look at Tenten but saw she was holding her sword at his neck and said you lose. You let a simple distraction cost you the match. As she turned and walked over to get the sword. Naruto eyes darkened a moment and said I want a rematch. Tenten said no. You don't have any idea on how to use a sword and I will not fight you again until you learn to use a sword and fight me for this blade. I will hold it until then. As she sealed both her sword and the sword that belonged to Naruto. I cleared his throat and said alright, that's enough for today, we still have a mission to do. Trying to get the idea of what he just saw Sakura do out of his head. Lee was also in a state of shock. Niji was still sitting in a meditation position, opened his eyes and said fine, let's go. As he walked past Sasuke shoving his shoulder against Sasuke's. Sasuke would have said something, but his pride would not let him. Naruto stared at Tenten and then at the sheath in his hand and growled to himself and said fine, I won't just beat you. I will destroy you in becoming an even better Kenjutsu master than you. As he turned to follow his team. Tenten walked over and started tapping his chest hard as she got in his face and said, the day you become better at weapons than me is the day I lose my virginity to you. It's not going to happen in a million years. Naruto smirked and grabbed both her hands and said well I hope you're nice and trying because I don't want to get lost in the bushes because you have not seen anything yet. Now let's get this damn cat. I got practice to do. As he jumped into the trees leaving a completely stunned group behind. Sakura and Tenten were both blushing red and Sakura said where the hell did that come from? Kakashi said I think I might have made a slight mistake. Drawing everyone's attention as he picked his book back up. Sakura narrowed her eyes and asked what do you mean sensei in a sweet voice. Kakashi said well after our little talk yesterday I dropped by his apartment last night and gave him the entire series of Icha Paradise and sort of made a bet with him. As he rubbed the back of his neck. Tenten pulled out a kunai and asked what kind of bet would give someone like him that kind of insult. As she released a little kai. Kakashi looked around and said I sort of told him if he could make it through the entire series without passing out, I would tell him about the yondaime was really like. Suddenly a high-pitched cry and a scream of goddamn fucking cat. I will kill you. Echoed across the village. Sakura said I think Naruto found Tora. Let's go so I can kill my sensei in a little while. As she jumped in the direction Naruto Chakra's signature was. When both Team 7 and 9 arrived everyone sweat dropped and Kakashi said Naruto, you can't do that to the cat. Naruto looked up with the knife he was sharpening and said, but Kakashi-sensei, I heard cat guts made excellent fishing line and I can use the rest to sell on the street to make some money. Of course I would give the village its part. As he looked at Tora currently tied in the air hanging from a tree over a barrel with water in it and fire underneath it, trying to make the water boil. Sakura stepped forward and said Naruto, I know you hate that cat, but please don't kill it. Naruto said that is no cat. That thing's scarier than Kyuubi. Making everyone sweat drop and a voice in Naruto head say not that bad. Naruto sighed and said fine, I don't understand why all the women in my life have to team up together against me. Just then several shout were heard across the village of what did he say. And Sakura giggled as everyone looked around for the voices and said I think word spread about your little speech earlier Naruto, so how well trimmed do you like it? With an evil glint in her eyes. Naruto blushed as he realized what he said and what she meant and Kakashi narrowed his eyes and asked how is that possible, no one else was there to hear it besides the 8 of us. Sakura said no, there was someone else there also but let's not worry about that. As she threw a kunyo at the rope holding the cat and as it began to fall into the water, Tenten flipped over the barrel and caught the cat. Naruto sighed and said well is that all Kakashi-sensei because I have a bet to win and as long as the path is neat, I don't see any problem. Smirking as he looked at Tenten who blushed and tried to look away. Kakashi said right, well let's return the cat to its owner and get some more training in. Sakura winced as she heard a voice in her head say, I am so going to kill that one-eye bastard for turning Naruto into a pervert at least it was exciting to hear him say that, but I need a cold shower. Sakura thought me too. Damn that was hot. I wonder what Hess like in bed. All that power and stamina makes me almost want to. Sakura thought were interrupted when another voice in her head said, you do realize you're still sending mental messages to the rest of us, right Sakura? Sakura blushed cutting off the link as they walked into the Hokage office and saw the Hokage smiling and said well good job Team 7 and 9. Now for the next job Team 7 will be joining Team 10 at the Yamanka flower shop and Team 9 will be joining Team 8 at the hot springs. Apparently they have had reports of someone spying on women. Sakura slapped her forehead and Kakashi asked is it him? The Hokage said no Kakashi, Hess out of the village currently so whoever it is must be stopped. Naruto thought and said forgive me for asking old man, but where would Ebise be right now? The Hokage said I don't know, why Naruto? Naruto said remember when I first met Konohamaru last year? The Hokage thought and said yes, what about it? Naruto said well when I first met him I was working on maintaining a henge for as long as I could, based on an idea someone gave me, and I was sort of henged as a woman in the hot springs. Tenten said you are such a pervert. Naruto said shut it Shaggy. Tenten blushed and said I have you know I take real good care of myself. Naruto said I will be the judge of that when I win the bet. The Hokage coughed getting everyone's attention and said now Naruto, what does your hot springs activity have to do with Fire mission? Naruto said long story short, I met Konohamaru when he was told to sneak into the woman hot spring and take a picture of all the women to work on his stealth. It was Ebai's idea. I was just saying that he would be a good suspect to look for while at the hot springs. Anyways, let's get to our mission. The Hokage said right, Team 7, Team 10 is already there, so please proceed, and Team 9, please alert Team 8 to what you have learned, but please make sure that it is him before capturing him. Both teams nod and leave, and Sakura asked, what was the henge you were working on, Naruto? Naruto said it was my sexy no jutsu, and luckily for me there were only 2 women there that day. One was this woman with black hair and smelled like snakes, and the other was that red-eyed woman who is Hinata Sensei. At this, Kakashi sputtered and said, you mean to tell me you actually saw both Kurenai and Anko naked at the same time and lived to talk about it? Teach me. As he got on his knees in front of Naruto. Naruto said, how about no? As he jumped out the window to miss Kakashi trying to grab him as he laughed, leading his team toward the Yamenko flower shop. Chapter 4. As Naruto was nearing his destination for the next mission, Sakura hears a voice in her head asked, what the hell just happened to me? Sakura thought, what do you mean, Tenten? I thought you wanted to test him with swords. Tenten thought back, I do, but that's not what I meant. I don't know. For some reason it felt like that when I saw Naruto today. It was like I had to challenge him and make him prove me wrong. To make him prove he was better than me. It was like I would accept nothing else from him. Ayubi blinked as she heard this inside Naruto and looked at Naruto's body display that showed his status and chakra range and blinked again and said, oh shit. Girls. There is something I think you all should know. Sakura thought, what is it, Kyuubi? Ayubi said, I know why Tenten was acting that way and why Naruto also got sexually hostile, also with his remarks. It looks like Naruto hit puberty now. Tenten thought, so, what does that have to do with anything? All of us have, what makes this special? Ayubi said, the things is, before Naruto hit puberty you all could go around him and he would never know it was you. Now that has hit he is releasing a pheromone into the air to attract mates. You remember how I told you these tests had another purpose beside him having to discover who we were? The other purpose was that once he passes your test and you both are in heat, he will mark you as his so no one else can. Unfortunately, women don't have a say after the test in the matter. That's why we each have to make our own test for him to pass, and now the next time Sakura hits her time when she's in heat, Naruto will mark her, and if he passes your test, Tenten, he will mark you as well. The voice said, so it's basically like an animal mating. Ayubi said yes. Another voice asked, what exactly will this marking thing be? Ayubi grinned and said, he will fuck you and bite you on the neck. Sakura, who was walking, suddenly tripped and landed on her face and thought, you mean that when I'm in heat he will fuck me and I can't do shit about it? Ayubi said, actually you don't understand. Basically when you are in heat, since has passed your test, you won't give a flying fuck what he does because you will be so horny you will basically try and rape him, so there won't really be any force from him since you have already approved of him by passing your test. Sakura sighed and thought, how long until I am in heat? Ayubi grinned and said, it's 1 week every 3 months. That's why you all have noticed your cycles are different now. It's also why you can have kids for say the next 5,000 years or longer if you don't get killed. The voice said, what are the odds of us getting pregnant from mating with him? Ayubi said, that's the good thing about this. Even though it will be sex and you will be in heat, unless you want to get pregnant you won't. You don't have to worry about birth control since your body automatically makes its own, but if you do want kids then the odds are 100%. It's a do or don't kind of deal. The voice said, that's good. As Naruto and his team made it to the Yamanka flower shop, he heard the voice of Ino scream, what the hell does that suspicious to mean, you lazy ass? Naruto looked inside and Shikamaru said, well, if your face did not just look like you were constipated, I would not have said you must be on your cycle, troublesome woman. Ino had a shadow over her and she drew back her fist when Sakura said, so that's why you need help, huh piggy? Making all 5 people inside the shop to look at the door. Asuma asked Kakashi, what is your team doing here? Kakashi never looked up from his book and said, the Hokage asked us to come and aid you since we already caught Tora and Team 9 is helping Team 8. Asuma nods and Inoichi said, well, it's good to see you all. Why don't you all come inside so I can show you what I need done? Naruto said, it's good to see you, Agent Inoichi-san. Inoichi smiled and said, and you also, Naruto, tell me, how's those flowers going? Naruto said, actually pretty good. I found they like my chakra for some reason. Ino blinked and asked Chakra, what are you talking about, Naruto? Inoichi said, Naruto here has been doing me a favor for the last year since I found him training one day in a field of flowers. He transplanted some rare flowers from that field and has been growing them for me and has helped keep me in stock nearly all year. Naruto said, in exchange for me doing that he got Joji dad to give me a cookbook with some recipes from other lands that I never even heard of and they are really good. As he smiled. Sakura blinked and asked, how come I never heard about that? Naruto said I think it's because I promised not to tell anyone until I could cook every dish in the book. Kyuubi said and that forced me to keep from telling you, stupid seal. I will be glad when I can get out of here agent. Naruto blinked and thought did you say something Kyuubi? I thought I heard you just now but I could be wrong. Kyuubi said no, I was just thinking out loud about how good those dishes were. Naruto cuts the link and sees everyone staring at him and asked what. Inoichi asked are you okay Naruto, you kind of spaced out there for a moment. Naruto said yeah, some of my Kagebunshin I was training with dispel temsels and I had to adjust to the new info. Shikamaru said Kagebunshin, that's a forbidden jounin jutsu. How do you know it? Naruto said a friend gave it to me when I was 7 to help me with a problem I have. Toji asked what kind of problem? You never told us about it. I thought we were friends. Naruto said my body makes too much chakra so it's nearly impossible for me to make regular bunshins. The only reason I passed the academy test was because I put a restraining seal on 90% of my chakra. Making everyone wide-eyed. Inoichi said 90%, how much do you have Naruto? Naruto scratched his head and said I'm not sure, I think if you put everyone in the village together, you might get half of me. Sasuke said bullshit. Nobody has that much chakra. Inoichi and Kakashi glanced at each other and Kakashi said well what is this mission you need us to do? Inoichi said right, I got 3 carts that just arrived from Rice Country full of fertilizer and I need you to stack it in my fertility warehouse in the back. Naruto said right, let's get to it. As he smiled walking toward the direction. Ino said now that's the right kind of attitude you lazy ass. As she hit Shikamaru over the head. Sakura said yeep, Hess one of a kind. As she started to follow Naruto. Ino blinked and said don't tell me you like him now Sakura. What about Sasuke-kun? Have you given up on the best and decided to sleep with the rest? Sakura said hey, Naruto is better than Sasuke. Ino said liar. Sasuke-kun is the best. Naruto. Sasuke. Naruto. Sasuke. Naruto. Sasuke. Naruto. Sasuke. Naruto. Sasuke. Naruto. Sasuke. Naruto came walking back and looking pale, ignoring the look everyone was giving Ino and Sakura and then said Inoichi-san, can I speak to you a moment in private? Drawing everyone's attention. Inoichi blinked and said sure Naruto. As he led them toward the hall. Sakura asked what was that about? Ino said I don't know. Looking the same way her dad and Naruto went. Just then a scream of what? Echoed down the hall. Inoichi came running back down the hall and said Kakashi, Asuma, come with me, everyone else stay inside. As he ran out the back door. Kakashi hearing the emergency followed immediately along with Asuma and both girls ran down the hall to where Naruto was sitting still white as a ghost and asked what's going on Naruto. Naruto looked up and moved his mouth but nothing would come out. Just then Kakashi came back in and said alright, both team 7 and 10. The mission's been cancelled and you have the rest of the day off. Sakura, take Ino with you for a few hours. Ino said hey, this is. Her dad came back in and said no Ino, go with Sakura and stay at her house until I come get you. Now go. Ino looked at her dad and nods and looked at Naruto who was still looking bad and said what about him? Inoichi looked at Naruto and said take him with you and go also. Treat him to lunch on me. Naruto looked at Inoichi and saw the silent message and nods getting up taking both Ino and Sakura by the hand and leading them out. Inoichi turns to Asuma who appeared with the Hokage and the Hokage asked are you all sure? Kakashi said no mistake sir. Someone changed the logos on all those bags of fertilizer to make them high concentrated exploding tags. If Naruto had not noticed them somebody could have taken out half of Konoha anytime they wanted to. The Hokage looked at Inoichi and asked when did they arrive Inoichi. Inoichi said yesterday around noon. The Hokage asked how many bags are we looking at? Inoichi said the order was for 10,000 bags sir. I treat the fields I get my flowers from with fertilizer several times a year to make sure a lot grow back and are also healthy looking. Kakashi said and the best I can tell is every bag's been changed. Inoichi said the only person who has been by them at all was Ino sir when she counted the bags to ensure the order was right and she does not know anything about seals. The Hokage nods and said right. I believe that means they were either changed on the way here or at the source. I will send a couple of teams of Anbu to Rice Country to see if they can find anything. I received word a new hidden village has been started there and if they had anything to do with this, it could be a declaration of war. For now I want you all to make sure word does not spread about this. Kakashi, find Naruto and tell him not to tell anyone what he knows. Kakashi leaves in a swirl of leaves and Inoichi asked, what should we do about the bag sir? The Hokage said write down the location of the fields they were meant for and I will have my Anbu fertilize them for you and confiscate the bags so we can try to determine who did this. I will have Ino and your fingerprints taken away to see if I can find any clues to who it could be. Asuma said don't forget Naruto's. If he had not noticed those seals we could have had a disaster. The third nods and said I am going to give an order to the gate guards that all orders coming from Rice country are to be checked for any other surprises. As he leaves in a swirl of leaves. Inoichi said I really got to thank Naruto for finding that. As he walks over and gets a bottle before taking a chug out of it and handing it to Asuma who downs a shot also. At Naruto's apartment Naruto asks so why did you both decide to eat here instead of at a restaurant? Ino said because I want to try your cooking. Just then a swirl of leaves appeared and Kakashi said there you are Naruto. As he sees Ino and Sakura sitting at the table while Naruto is at the stove. Naruto asked what do you need Kakashi-sensei and how did you get in here? I have a seal preventing anyone who I don't let in. Kakashi said the Hokage had me add myself to the master seal when he showed me your apartment before team placements in case I needed to get in like just now. Anyways the reason I came by was to tell you not to tell anyone what you saw. We don't want people getting upset when a body is found inside a wagon of fertilizer. Ino said a body. With surprise disgust. Naruto understood what Kakashi meant and said I understand Kakashi-sensei. I won't tell. Kakashi nods and leaves in a swirl of leaves and Ino said well I must say, you passed my test Kishin. Making Naruto go wide-eyed and turn to look at Ino who was smiling. Naruto said you're one of the sisters. Sakura said yes she is. I'm surprised you did not figure it out from her clues. After all someone had to help me through my whole little a fox speech. Naruto thought a moment and sighed and said so what exactly was your test Ino? I mean if I passed it I should at least know what it was. Ino smiled and said it was 3 parts. 1 you had to befriend my father which you did by just so accidentally showing up at the only field in Konoha that has those rare flowers you grow to try and relax and get a better understanding of your surroundings and of flowers. Naruto said so that's why I received a letter telling me to try and relax there and learn the truth of plants. Ino nods and said the second part was your ability to identify seals which you did today. Naruto got wide-eyed and said you mean those exploding tags was from you? Why, I mean you put the whole village on alert over that. Sakura said Naruto listen to me a moment. That shipment came from Rice country. You don't know it and can't tell anyone including the Hokage, but the new hidden village that just was created there is actually planning on attacking Konoha sometime in the next year. I won't tell you anything else, but Ino thought that if Konoha suddenly started to investigate that area, perhaps the Hokage would find more information ahead of time and actually prevent them from attacking. Naruto thought and said so it's like chess. You were positioning pawns into a trap so the knights can take out the queen. Both Ino and Sakura blinked and looked at Naruto and said, you are definitely smarter than you were before Naruto. Naruto sighed and said what was the last test? Ino said your final part of your test was to actually be able to take care of flowers. If you have the patience to do that then you have enough patience to deal with a woman like me. Naruto nods and said alright, now that I passed your test you both have to pass mine. Sakura said we don't have to pass your test. Naruto said really, then maybe I won't mark you when the time comes. Making both Ino and Sakura go wide-eyed and Kyuubi also. Sakura asked what are you talking about Naruto? Naruto said I heard Kyuubi talking about fucking you and biting you on the neck. I thought about it and realized it's like an animal mating thing that I read about in a book. I figure that I have to approve of you and you have to approve of me, which is why you and these other women are testing me. Right. Ino said yes. Naruto nods and said right. My test is simple. I want to hear why you chose me. Not the whole group explanation that Sakura gave me, but I want to know why you specifically say you love me. I want to know if it's me you see or if it's some fantasy of who you think I was or am or what. This has been a real surprise for me and now I see that everything in my life could be a setup trying to get me to be something I may or may not be so answer my question. Why me? That's all I want to know. Why you feel I am worth enough for you to give up your normal lives and decide to become kitsunes. As he looked at both girls. Ino looked at Naruto and said I understand. You're right. This is a lot for you to take in. We have all been forcing Ursul's onto you and hiding from you so much you don't know what's real and what's not so you don't know if our feelings for you is real or some kind of trick. Right. Naruto did not say anything and Ino said I am right. Okay, the reason I fell for you Naruto is simple. I have always acted like I was the stable most attractive woman ever and could have anyone I want. Events happened that showed me that I was not what I thought I was. The guy I thought I liked Shodi was nothing but an illusion that cared nothing for me. The guy I had strung along as a fallback should my first fail turned away from me and tried his hand somewhere else and for the first time in my life I felt like I was just a worthless little tease that finally got what she deserved. Then a mission happened and you and I were the only ones on it. The mission was where I had to make a prince fall in love with a princess who looked like me only fat. We succeeded on the mission, but I felt even lonelier afterwards because I could not understand how a princess like her could find a kind caring guy like the prince, and I could not find anyone. You told me that I was going about it the wrong way. That I. Naruto said that you should not change yourself for some guy and that you should find someone who loved you for you and not who you pretend to be. Ino was wide-eyed and asked, how did you know? Naruto looked into her eyes and said, I don't know. It was like I was seeing the memory when you told me the story, but it was not mine. I don't really understand. Iubi said I gave you the memory you had from the future of that event. I only will give you a memory that shows you what each girl is talking about as a gift to answer your question, but I won't give you any others. Ino smiled and said, anyways, that day made me change my look on myself and my life, and for the first time in my life, I truly was happy with myself and decided you were right. I should find someone who loves me for me and sees me as me, and that someone is you, Naruto-kun. All three looked at each other and Sakura said, I guess it's my turn. It's harder for me to tell why I love you because there were so many things that you did. You saved my life, gave me emotional support even when you yourself was going through the same pain, always was there when I needed you, never failed me in anything that truly mattered, and put my happiness before yours to the point you nearly died to see me happy. It was after all this I realized that you were the only man to ever care about me, I could not do any wrong in your eyes, and had undeniable faith in me, no matter what I was doing or seemed I could not do it. It was this reason that made me fall in love with you. Naruto closed his eyes as a memory was pushed forward and said it's a promise of a lifetime. As he opened his eyes and saw Sakura get up and walk over to him and hug him and say, and now I make one to you. I will never leave your side, whether it's in life or death. As she turned and kissed him. Naruto for his part still stiffened when he was kissed and suddenly he felt a second pair of arms holding him and Ino whispered in his ear ditto. As she replaced Sakura on his lips. Sakura when she backed away from the kiss, sent a mental message to Ino and walked to the bathroom. Naruto was brought out of his kiss with Ino when he heard water running in his shower. He pulled away and asked what's going on. As Ino took his hand and led him toward the bathroom. Ino said it's a surprise. As she pulled him in and closed the door behind her. Naruto found a towel being wrapped around his eyes and Sakura said just relax. Ino and I have a present for you. Just enjoy it. As she started to pull his shirt off of him. Ino began taking his pants off and said relax, you're staying in your boxer. For now. She thought. Sakura smiled as she led Naruto to his walk-in shower and opened the door having already set the water. Naruto said so my present is a shower. Confused about what is going on. Sakura said nope as she kissed him from the front while Ino rubbed across his back massaging it and Naruto could feel that Sakura was only in her panties and bra. Ino stopped massaging with her arms and pressed her body against his back and he felt she was the same and she started to nibble on his ear. Sakura started to rub her hands across his chest and across his stomach as she broke the kiss and turned him around so she could rub herself against his back while Ino got to enjoy the muscle chest he had. Naruto was in utter bliss as both girls seemed to know every place on his body that could provide pleasure and he was also getting turned on. Before he could ponder that he felt a pair of hands inside of his boxers as he was pushed against the shower wall and felt one stroking him while the other rubbed his balls. Nothing could prepare him for the feeling he was having and soon his breath became shallow and if he could see his eyes would have been rolled back in his head. He was also being kissed as another pair of hands rubbed both of his pecs. Instinctively he put both his arms around both girls and pulled them closer, feeling their breast pressed against his chest as they both took turns kissing him and he felt his legs go weak and an intense pressure burst from him as he began to pant. Both girls giggled and said together surprise. As they pulled the towel off his eyes and kissed him once more before stepping out leaving him to fall to his knees, looking at both girls in wonder as they grabbed their cloths off the sink and leave the bathroom. After a few moments of calming down he got up and took his boxers that were now on the floor of his shower and threw them in the laundry hamper and grabbed his bathrobe, putting it on after drying off and going out into the room only to meet Sakura who said here you go. As she handed him some of his cloths and pushed him back into the bathroom. After he got dressed he walked out and found both girls had made him some lunch and left a note on the table. He sighed walking over and read. The surprise was worth it huh? Ino and I had to go so we could keep our stupid mask up for now, but enjoy the lunch we made you and start training, you have a lot to do. The scroll on the table has 5 water and 5 earth jutsu. Try and master them, not learn them but master them. Don't forget you also need to try and get your sword back so you can try and find another sister. P.S. Don't listen to Kakashi about his porn. You got the real thing coming so why settle for a substitute? Love. Do kitsunes. Naruto smiled and said I don't know but I think I might like having this. As he began to eat. After he got up he created a Kagebunshin to clean up his place and he took the scroll and began to read it. Unknown to him, both Ino and Sakura were at Sakura house panting as they tried to relieve themselves. Ino looked at Sakura as she finished and cleaned herself up and said that was unbelievable. Sakura, who had done finished earlier, said, I know. Can you believe we did that to him? Ino said, I was talking about his body. Hess like a god or something. Sakura giggled and nods as she remembers Naruto body and said, I know, and did you feel how much Hess packing? He can club me anytime he wants with that thing. Ino got red-faced and a voice from the window said, that was a low blow, both of you. Ino looked at the person as she climbed in the window and said, you're just mad that we did that without you. After all, you're probably the only one who is more sex crazed than Kyuubi herself. How was your meeting, by the way? The person said it was good, so is everything alright with Naruto-kun? Sakura sighed and said, so when is he going to get your test? The person said, my test has been going since the night I comforted him on the Hokage monument. Once he figures out my question he passes. Sakura asked, so what was your question? The person said, I asked him why does he want to get strong. Once he realizes why he should be strong and where true strength comes from, I will let him pass. Sakura smiled and said, that's a good question. I won't tell him the answer. Back with Naruto. Naruto was at the training ground reading the scroll when Asuma appeared and said, hello Agent Naruto. Naruto scrunched his nose and said, you're Ino-sensei. Asuma said, yes, my name is Saratobi Asuma. Naruto asked, are you related to the old man? Asuma laughs and said, yes, Hess my dad. Naruto nods and asks, so what do you want? As he stood in case this was a trap so he could escape. Asuma saw him get into a ready position and thought, well, he does not let his defense down. That's good. And said, Kakashi told me you said your main element is wind. Is that true? Naruto said, yes, why? Asuma said, because I am the only other wind user in Konoha and he asked me to give you some advice. Tell me, what do you know about wind jutsu? Naruto thought a moment and said, well, I know that wind is the most powerful offensive element but sucks at defense and is weak against fire. I also know about 10 wind jutsu, but I feel like I use too much chakra in them. Asuma nods and asked, do you know how to do wind manipulation? Naruto thought and said, I know what it is, but don't know how to do any actual manipulation. Asuma walked over to a tree and grabbed several leaves and said, the reason you feel like you use too much chakra on your wind jutsu is because you don't know how to fully power them. The problem with using any elemental jutsu is if you don't know how to fully use the element they come from, then you actually make them weaker. Wind is the most blatant one and also the most dangerous. Watch this leaf and see what I mean. As he held one in his hand and it was cut, and Naruto said, that's cool, how did you do that? Asuma said, well, the key to using wind is you must realize that wind is everywhere. You have to mold the wind around your body to a certain place and compress it until it becomes a visual effect. Imagine wind is a piece of glass, rub your hand across the surface of it and you won't feel anything but the glass, but if you rub your hand across the side where it is compressed, you might cut off your hand with enough force. Wind manipulation is wind compressed and forced to a certain spot. Do you understand? Naruto thought and sat down, putting his hand under his chin and said, so you basically made a paper cut on that leaf, right? Asuma sweat drops and said, yes, that's one way to say it. Naruto asked, how do I do it? Asuma smiled and said, first thing you need to do is close your eyes and find the wind around your body. Feel the current as it moves around you until you can realize exactly what it is. Naruto said, hey, that's just like when I was as he caught himself. Asuma asked, just like when you were what, Naruto? Naruto said, well, I was learning this cool jutsu from a scroll, but it was real hard for me until I learned that I can't just make wind come out with my chakra. I had to move the wind around me to make the jutsu work. Asuma blinked and asked, what was that jutsu if you don't mind me asking? Naruto looked around and said, well, it's supposed to be a secret, but since you're helping me and you're the old man's son, I will tell you. It's called Kazabunshin. Asuma said, wait, wind clone, there is no such jutsu. Naruto got up and said, yes there is, watch. As he did some hand signs and said, Kazabunshin no jutsu. And a single wind clone appeared and said hi. Asuma blinked and said, will I be damn, where did you learn it? Naruto said, it's a secret. The old man knows but I'm not sure I can tell you. Asuma said, fair enough, but can I learn that jutsu? Naruto thought and said, let me ask the Hokage. He told me not to let anyone see any of my jutsu unless he approved. Deal. Asuma said, fair enough. Well, since you already know how to feel the wind around you, let me show you the second step. Naruto asked, how many steps are there? Asuma smiled and said 4. The first step is feeling the wind around you at any moment. I believe you have that already. The second step is compressing it until you can cut a leaf like I did. I won't tell you the other two until you pass this step up to my idea of passing, and don't get upset if you can't do it because it can take a lot of time. Naruto said, time huh? That's something I don't have a lot of. I guess I can speed it up. As he put his hands in a sign and said Tajuu Kagebunshin no Jutsu. And around 1000 Kagebunshims appeared and all started grabbing leaves without having to be told. Naruto looked at Asuma who was gaping and asked, "Are you okay, Asuma-sensei?" Asuma closed his mouth and said, "Yes, you surprise me, but why did you use that jutsu?" Naruto said, "Well, anything they learn is passed on to me when they are dispelled, so I figure I can cut the amount of time down by using this." Asuma nods and said, "Right, what are you going to do while your clones work on this?" Naruto said, "Well, I was going to read this scroll, but I also need to work on my weapon skills so I can get my sword back." Asuma said, "Ah, Kakashi told me about that earlier. That Tenten girl really showed you up, huh?" Naruto looked down and nods and said, "The thing is, how can I beat her without my sword? I can't exactly get another one for obvious reasons." Asuma said, "So you know, huh?" Naruto nods and said, "Yes, but it's still a lot to take in. I understand why my dad did it, but I can't understand why everyone hates me." Asuma blinked and said, "Dad, what do you mean your dad?" Naruto got wide-eyed as he realized what he said and rubbed his head and said, "Nothing sensei, I was just rambling." Asuma thought, "I am going to ask Dad about this later. However, I want to see how good this kid is. According to the reports I read him, Choji and Shikamaru are real close friends and he might be able to help me with them, so I will do that." As he said, "Well, okay. Anyways, I was wondering, how would you like to learn how to fight using weapons? How much would that be worth to you?" Naruto got excited and said, "You would teach me, I would do anything." Asuma said, "Well, as you know, Choji and Shikamaru are also my students and it's a little hard for me to figure a way to help train them. If you can give me some ideas as to how to get them to work harder on missions and training, I can teach you how to use trench knives like these." As he held up his and continued, "They are great for wind users once you get wind manipulation down, and I could give you this set since I got another at home if you would be willing to help me." Naruto thought it over and said, "Alright, it's a deal." Asuma hands Naruto the knives and said, "Okay, trench knives are used primarily with a fighting style called shadow boxing. You make fast moves drawing the blades by a person body and letting the wind element actually do the cutting to surprise your enemies. I want you to practice punching air 500 times with each arm to get used to them and also work on your arm speed. Will you tell me anything you think might help me be a better sensei to the two boys so Ino won't scream so much?" Naruto stiffened when he said Ino, but Asuma did not notice and after Asuma stopped talking said, "Well, it's actually quite simple if you think about it. Shikamaru is smart, very smart, but he feels because he never loses at any strategy games like shogi, chess, and go that he never needs to work harder, then the least he has to so make the missions or the training you do more like a strategy test. Take that damn cat Tora, I bet Shikamaru would use his shadow to catch it and be done, so why not make it where on one mission he can't use chakra or make it where one member of the team is not allowed to leave his insertion spot while the others must make the cat go to that member to be captured or something like that. Make him think on his feet and also give him a time limit to how long he thinks to make it more challenging. If he goes past the time limit then he has to do some kind of exercise that he normally would not do, and if he does it in the time limit and follows the restriction, then give him a reward of say an afternoon of playing games or cloud watching, and the next time decrease the time and change the variables to make it harder for him." Asuma was stunned as he listened to Naruto and asked, "How did you come up with that?" Naruto said, "Well, when he taught me how to play shogi and chess after the first time I lost back in the academy, I started playing multiple games with my clones and he saw it, so he tested himself against several of my clones at a time. I still lost but it was much harder and I learned a few tricks that I could use with my clones in battles." Asuma said, "Your academy grade said you were around average in IQ, did you hide your true skills like Shikamaru?" Naruto said, "No, the practical skills I was good at, but with Mizuki always trying to screw me over and the fact I could not ask for a lot of help from people because they don't like me, it hurt what I could learn. It also hurt that I can't get into the library to do a lot of the assignments. Even with the help I received I could not get better than I was." Asuma eyes darkened and asked, "Why could you not get into the library?" Naruto said, "Well, every time I tried to go in there those funny-looking Anbu guys would stop me and threaten to arrest me for trespassing, so I never got by the door, even when I used henge they usually hit me and then threatened me." Asuma asked, "What do you mean funny-looking Anbu? What was funny about them?" Naruto scrunched his nose and said, "Well, they had the letters northeast on their mask instead of an animal. After around the 20th time of getting turned away I gave up." Asuma asked, "Why did you not tell the Hokage?" Naruto sighed and said, "Well, I would have, but after everything else he did for me, I did not want to bother him. I owe him too much for saving me so much when I was younger." Asuma looked up at the sky and thought, "Damn you Danzo, the kids could be a fucking genius from what I can see, and you and the rest of these assholes keep screwing him over." And asked, "So what about Choji?" Naruto smiled and said, "That's simple. Do the same thing with him as with Shikamaru. put restriction on what he can and can't do in a mission, since there are few fights where you can be at 100%. If he passes, then buy him one plate of any food of his choosing. If he loses, make it where he has to do something that will help him overall, like wear a set of light weights that he's not allowed to remove except on days off and taking a shower. That way it will help him with speed and increase his endurance also. Just make it where each test you give him and Shikamaru is where even if the mission succeeds they could still fail, so they will work harder to succeed. Asuma thought about it and said, I think I might do that. Any suggestions about Ino? Naruto blushed and Asuma saw it and thought, so he likes Ino, huh? And Naruto said, I don't really know a lot about her, and he winces as Kyuubi screams in his head, have him teach her hand to hand also. That's her weakness. Asuma tapped Naruto on the shoulder and asked, are you alright, you spaced out again? Naruto said yes, one of my clones that I had working at my apartment just dispelled itself, and I got the memories from it. Sorry about that. Asuma said, Naruto, does that happen every time your clones dispel, you space out I mean? Naruto said no. If I am not busy myself when one dispels I try and see what they did or did not do so I can decide if I need to make another one. Normally I can dispel all of these and only get a little headache, or I can spar with them and not even really feel anything. The only time I have trouble with using the jutsu is if say I have them spend all day doing something and then dispel all at the same time. That can knock me out, but if I do it in small groups it's not so bad. It all depends on how long and what they were doing if it bothers me, but like I said, I just like to know what was going on, since I almost burned my apartment once when I was learning to cook from not checking them out. Asuma nods and said, well, be careful. That is a forbidden jutsu for a reason. The clone yelled, Yada, I did it. As it dispelled itself and all the other clones blinked and soon another and another all started to get it and Naruto said that was quick. Asuma could only nod as he saw a chain effect as more and more clones got it and dispelled themselves and Naruto said anyway, to answer your question. Ino's biggest problem is hand-to-hand and taijutsu. Her family jutsu don't really teach those skills and as she's not the most physical member of the team, she will need help in those area. Asuma nods and Naruto walked over to a tree and grabbed 2 leaves and after a few seconds both split. Asuma smiled and said, well, you got the hang of it but not mastered yet. I want you to keep doing it until you can cut 1 leaf on each finger and toe. When you can do that then I will teach you step 3. Deal. Naruto nods and asked, is there anything else Asuma-sensei? Asuma said yes, keep practicing with those knives and when you can throw 30 punches with each hand in under a minute, I will teach you the next thing on how to use the knives. Try using weights on your arms to help increase your speed with them. Naruto nods and said thank you. Asuma said it's the least I can do for what you did earlier and besides, Kakashi asked me to see if I could help you, so I thought I would see what you were doing and how good you were. Naruto asked, and how good am I? Asuma thought and said I will tell you when I see how long it takes you to master both the leaf cutting and the first part of shadow boxing. Saya kid and good luck. As he leaves in a swirl of leaves. Naruto smiled and looked at the rest of his Kagebunshin that hurt Asuma and were trying several leaves now. Naruto himself created another clone to read the scroll as he dispelled the Kagebunshin and worked on trying to shadow box while walking up a tree and back down. When Asuma left he appeared in the Hokage's office and Kakashi was there and said, so, what do you think? As him and the Hokage looked through the crystal ball at Naruto. Asuma said the kid could be a prodigy if he was given a decent chance. His skills are surprising and his ability to use Kagebunshins could aid him beyond anyone's comprehension. I think a little help and he could be a jounin in no time from what I saw and you told us Kakashi. Kakashi nods and Asuma asked now, what did he mean by dad? The third sighed and said I should have told him and Sakura that they could not mention that he is the Yandame's son. I hope neither of them has told anyone else. Asuma said I understand but I am confused. If Sakura knows does Naruto like her or something? The third sighed and lit his pipe and said, from what I can tell Naruto has 9 girls who like him but they each hide it so as to not get hurt right now. I don't know who the others are but the way Sakura talks all 9 want to help him restore his clan even if they don't know about his bloodline. Asuma asked wait, he has a bloodline? Kakashi said, it's possible. His father carried it but never activated it. I don't know what it's called or what it does but apparently it's something that scared sensei. The third said yes, it is a very dangerous bloodline and if Naruto ever activates it, he could become the most powerful person in this village without the Kyuubi's help. Asuma asked what exactly is it dad? I mean in case he accidentally activates it while he's with me training. The third thought a moment and said I'm sorry, but for his safety, I will not tell even one of you what it is, because if word got out he had it, not only would someone try to use him as breeding stock, but also cut out his eyes. All I can say is it is a Dijutsu and is not either the Sharingan or Byakugan. Now don't tell anyone about it or I will kill you. This is an even bigger secret than the Kyuubi and Naruto father combined. Both men nod and the third said, well, I guess that will be all. I will trust both of your decisions on what to do about him. You may go. Both men nod and leave, and the third pulls out a pink book, giving a little giggle as he began to read. A few hours later, Naruto was in his apartment meditating and was standing in front of the board showing his chakra, and he asked, hey Kyuubi, what happened to my chakra network? It looks like it's been flooded by wind chakra. Kyuubi looked at it and said it has. When you learn to manipulate an element, you actually flood your system with it, and when you do it the way you just did with all those Kagebunshin, you are almost ready to actually gain your true second tail. Naruto looked at her and asked, what do you mean my true tail? Kyuubi said, you see that display on the wall that has tails off to the side of your body? Move some of the wind chakra to your head on your body and see what happens. Naruto looked and slowly moved a large ball of wind chakra to his head and it disappeared and appeared in the tail, but only showed as just a little bit filled. Naruto asked what happened. Kyuubi said, it's simple. When you move enough of an element to your head and it transfers to the tail that represents that element till it completely fills the tail, you will gain full access to your wind affinity, and after that, no matter how much you practice or train, you won't have to worry about wind chakra in your body because it will automatically be pulled to that tail and give you better control. Say you use that wind jutsu to dry your cloths. Remember how it takes around 5 minutes to dry your cloths. When you get that tail completely full to a point where all wind chakra is drawn to it, you will be able to be dry in less than a minute. Understand? Naruto thought and said, so all I have to do is move the elemental chakra to my head and it will transfer over. Why can't I just do that with all elements instead of grouping them together like I have been doing? Kyuubi said, around every 20 rank jutsu you use you only make about 1% of a tail. If you try and move less than 1% over to a tail at a time, all that energy would be lost because the tail won't recognize it unless it's strong. Naruto sighed and said, I see. Well, I guess I better get back to work. As he began to group wind chakra together and transfer it to the tail. Naruto then thought, hey Kyuubi, when master wind manipulation under Asuma sensei, what will that do to this? As he pointed to the chart. Kyuubi grinned and said, kid, before you made that progress today with your wind manipulation, it would have taken 40 A rank jutsu to make a percent, so you see, just with finally understanding wind chakra correctly, you cut the time and trouble you will need to get a tail. I say you will be able to get down to maybe 10 A rank jutsu when you master it to human standards. Naruto smiled and said, then this is going to get really easy with all the other elements. Kyuubi sighed and said, no, you have to realize some elements will actually be harder, taking probably 200s rank jutsu to make 1% like fire. Since you started off with wind, fire will be your weakest. Naruto sighs himself and nods, getting back to work. At the end of the night, Kyuubi looked at Naruto body and thought 50% already, he's going to master this in no time when he begins the next part and then he can go to earth and water. Hopefully he can get both down before that wave mission. As she fell asleep. It has been 2 weeks since Naruto first found Ino as the second sister. In that time he has not seen her because of training and missions. Sasuke has become more broody and has been distancing himself further from Naruto and Sakura to the point Kakashi has been trying to come up with some way to help teamwork. Some are a little extreme. Flashback. Kakashi appeared at Team 7 meeting spot and saw Naruto and Sakura sparring on top of the water as Naruto was using trench knives and Sakura was using kunes as 20 Kagebunshin from Naruto were walking up and down a tree cutting leaves on all of his fingers while trying to get the ones on his toes to stay in position to be cut. Kakashi looked and saw Sasuke with his arms crossed glaring daggers at them and he sighed thinking, it's been nearly 2 weeks and he refuses to do anything other than what I order and he is getting weaker from not asking for help and getting better like those two are. He cleared his throat and Naruto and Sakura stopped fire spar and Sakura said, I still can't believe you're not 2 hours late. 1 hour is an improvement for you sensei. Naruto put the trench knives away and Sasuke got up walking over to where the other 3 were now standing but stopped as all 3 were standing on the water a few feet away. Kakashi looked at him sighing and said, well, today's mission has been cancelled. Apparently the man who has been having most of our genin teams doing D-rank missions recently left the Leaf Village. The Hokage has decided that it's time the genin team started to work on more productive things. Sakura asked, what do you mean sensei? Kakashi smiled as he said. 2 hours later Sakura was pissed, no saying she was pissed would be like saying you could put out a forest fire with one person's piss. It's a big understatement. Why was she pissed? Well. Naruto was standing on his hands on top of hot spring water with Sakura standing on his feet holding 2 ninja wires that held Sasuke above her head with the wires wrapped around his arms and legs slung over a wire running from a tree on each side of the hot spring while Kakashi read them aloud from his Icha Paradise book. If she let go to attack Kakashi, Sasuke would fall on her or Naruto, forcing them down into the hot water below. Naruto asked, now why agent are we doing this exercise Kakashi sensei? Kakashi stopped reading and said, like I told you before, this exercise is designed to help in all 3 areas you each have trouble. You Naruto on chakra control, which even though is getting better, is still nowhere near as good as it could be or needs to be. Sakura, your use of chakra is amazing, and so is your control, but your physical strength as well as chakra reserves are small, which is why you are using chakra to stick to Naruto feet while you use chakra to help strengthen your arms. As for you Sasuke, your refusal to be a team player and trust your teammates is dangerous, so I have both of them holding your life in their hands like they would on a mission. Now until Naruto control slips, Sakura runs out of chakra or you become a team player, freeing yourself and helping Sakura down. This exercise will continue. End flashback. Needless to say, after 5 hours of this, Sakura and Naruto both dropped Sasuke like a bad habit right into the hot spring since he refused to help Sakura to end the training. The day was supposed to be their day off, but Naruto and Sakura were at the training ground Naruto used as a child. Naruto was currently standing on the edge of the waterfall on the downside of it, keeping from slipping further with chakra, and Sakura was laying on the water below. Naruto was only in a pair of swim trunks with frogs on them, and Sakura had a 2-piece pink bikini. Sakura asked, so how is your private training coming Naruto-kun? I know we don't show our true skills at team practice and I'm just wondering. Naruto, who had his eyes closed concentrating, said, I don't know for sure. When I do the hidden mist jutsu I cover way too much of an area and I can still see. According to the scroll you gave me, it's supposed to be so thick you can't see anything within 3 feet of you. Sakura said, yeah, that's a hard one to get because you have to pull the water for it back to you. What about your other studies? Naruto thought and said, well, I got Mizabunshi no jutsu down, no problem. They don't give the mental feedback like shadow clones do, but they do cost less chakra so I can make more. Sakura nods and asks, so is that all you've been doing? I mean besides our team practices. Naruto frowns and said, no, I have been doing the training Asuma sensei suggested and I have also been working on a few other things that I want to be surprises. Sakura smiles and said, well, I like surprises. Come down here and relax a little. As she lets her control slip so only the top half of her body was above the water. Naruto opened his eyes and said sure. As he backflipped and fell into the water below. A few moments later he surfaced and swam over to Sakura. Sakura asked, so, what's on your mind these days besides training? Naruto thought and said, trying to figure out who the rest of you are and what I'm supposed to do. I feel like there is so much I'm supposed to do now, but don't know what. As he frowned. Sakura swam up and put her arms around him and said in a soft kind voice, Naruto-kun, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. Ino and I are both proud of the advancements you have made. Hell, your progress is outstanding actually. You just need to realize that there is a time and place for everything. Naruto sighed, closing his eyes, and Sakura leaned in and kissed him, making his eyes open for a moment before closing agent and returning the kiss. Sakura moved her legs around his waist and pulled herself against him, and he broke the kiss and said, Sakura, I don't think we should go any further right now, what about the others? It's not fair to them if we go further. As he felt her grinding her groin area into his. He read enough of Icha Paradise to know exactly where this was heading. Sakura smiled and put her mouth by his ear and whispered, it's alright. I talked to them recently and we decided that it don't matter who gets you first because it was your choice. Just as long as you love us all equal is all we ask. Besides, after we found out something from Kyuubi, I decided I wanted to decide when I would do it and not when my body decided to. Naruto closed his eyes and laid his head on her shoulder and said, you know, I've been thinking a lot lately and I remember when I was younger one of you came to me on the Hokage mountain and saved me from my pain. She asked me a question, why do I want to be strong? At first I thought it should be so people would quit being mean to me. Now that I know about Kyuubi I know that's not going to happen, so I thought, why would I want to get strong? Should I be strong so I could live longer or so I don't have to be afraid anymore? I realize now that those were all wrong. The reason I should get strong is not for myself but for those I care about. As he tried to distract himself and was failing. Sakura said, your precious people. Naruto thought, which was getting harder to do, and said, yeah, my precious people. Sakura asked, what makes you say that? I mean, how can you be sure that is the true reason to be strong? Naruto let out a little whimper as Sakura rubbed her knee against his crotch as she slowly started to swim both of them toward the shore. He finally said, my dad. Now that I know who he is I think about why he did what he did. I mean, he could have taken me and ran but he didn't. Instead he sealed Kyuubi and me and protected the village. I realized that it was not the village as a whole he was saving, but actually me. Sure, we might have ran and live or we both could have died. He did what he had to so he knew I would live. He was naive, but his intentions were true. I don't know how he got the strength to do it himself though, because I don't know if I could in the same situation. I think I would have failed. As he felt his back being pushed against a couple of boulders near the shore. Sakura pulled away from him a little and thought, can I tell him? You heard all that right? The voice in her head said, you can tell him what the truth is about the saying, but not me, or that he passed my test. I will reveal that later. Sakura smiled and softly said as she lowered her lips beside his ear so she could nibble on them and said, no, you would have succeeded. Someone told the future you a sentence that changed your life forever. You nearly told me it today, but you know enough to be told the sentence. Only when you protect something that is precious to you do you find true strength to overcome anything. Naruto was shuddering by the lips on his ear as he took in the words, and Sakura took that moment to rub her hand against his crotch, making his eyes flutter. Before he realized it, his shorts had been pushed down and Sakura had put both her arms over his shoulder and was using them as a lever as she slowly started to push him into her. Naruto was shocked by the tightness he now felt on his manhood, and he remembered reading how it was hard for a girl her first time, and he imagined this was Sakura's first time because of fire age. Sakura had her eyes open and was looking in his as her bikini bottom floated on top of the water between them. Naruto was perfectly still as he felt something push against the tip and Sakura whimpered and Naruto asked, are you sure there is no turning back after this? Sakura smiled as she tried to adjust to this feeling and thought, man, I can't believe in both lives, this is the first time I ever done this and it's painful, but I knew it would be. He's so kind and caring to worry about me. I guess I should thank Kakashi for giving him those books nah. Sakura said in a soft voice, I want this, it's just I never done this before and as her eyes rolled back in her head as a tear slowly fell down her cheeks. Naruto leaned forward and pulled her into a hug, licking the tear off her face and whispered into her ear and said, I'm sorry, as he pulled her tights against him and held her close as he rubbed her back. Sakura was shocked when she felt the hands on her hips roughly pull her down onto him. She knew it would hurt, but she also felt something else in the pain she felt. Unsure what it was, she just laid there a few moments as her body adjusted to having him inside of her completely. After the pain subsided, she tried to move a little to adjust to it, and Naruto, who felt her slowly respond to him, now started to slowly pull out and back in just a little at first, letting her get used to his size. He was by no means small in that area, at a little over 8 in length, and his width was more than enough to fill her completely, and then some. As he slowly pulled out and pushed back and going a little further out each time, Sakura pain that had bothered her before was now building into the first wave of pleasure. Sakura started to aid Naruto in his movements, making their speed increase. Naruto now looked in her eyes and saw something he had not seen before in them. When he looked before, they were kind and caring eyes, but now they had a hint of lust in them. Neither said anything as they increased speed and tempo. Naruto, having enough of being on the bottom, quickly switches position, putting Sakura against the rocks, giving him more power. Sakura started to let whimpers and mews of pleasure out as Naruto let grunts out, and neither would break the contact they had with each other's eyes. Sakura felt herself approaching a climax as she quickly orgasmed, and as she was panting, Naruto increased his speed even more. Sakura would have wondered how he was doing it in the water if she had any coherent thoughts at the moment, and she might have realized Naruto had moved them to the shore completely and they were on solid ground and her top had been through somewhere as Naruto massaged her breast and softly bit her on the base of her neck, but she was too far gone as the 2 and 3 orgasm hit and Naruto felt himself closing and his eyes conveyed an unasked question and Sakura saw it and said, "Come in me. Don't hold back and give me everything you got." In ragged breaths. Naruto nods and closed his eyes as he increased his pace to one that had the sound of his balls slapping her as to that of a drumroll. Sakura and him both stiffened at the same time as her fourth and his first orgasm hit and he continued to move in her to help give every drop he could and help her through the one she was experiencing. After that moment he collapsed on her, breathing hard, and whispered in her ear, "I love you." Sakura whispered back, "I know, I love you also." As she tried to gather her breath. Naruto, as he felt himself completely spent, rolled off of her and pulled her close to him to hold her. He rubbed her back as she laid her head on his chest. Both just sat there enjoying the moment, afraid to break the mood, and Sakura blinked before giggling and said, "I see your stamina works in another area also." As she saw him getting hard aging. Naruto chuckled himself and was about to say something when he stiffened and said, "Sakura, get your cloths, we're not alone." By her ear as not to alert Wover it as he smelled. Sakura stiffened and slowly stood up, walking over to the water to grab her bikini bottom when Naruto screamed, "Sakura, look out." As several kunai were thrown from a tree at her. Sakura turned to Naruto, voice looking for the threat, but before she had time to worry she felt herself be replaced and the sound of metal piercing flesh echoed through the clearing, making her turn and look as Naruto was on the ground with several kunai in his back. Sakura screamed, "Naruto, are you okay?" As she ran for him only to have to jump away as a figure landed between her and Naruto. Sakura narrowed her eyes at the figure and glanced at Naruto, and she heard Kyuubi in her head shout, "Someone get help, Naruto in bad shape and I can't do anything." The weapons are coated with a type of poison that neutralizes not only his chakra but my own. Sakura cursed herself as most of the people who could hear this message were out of the village, and Sakura thought get her quick, we're at the training ground behind the Hokage mountain. Mizuki attacked us and Naruto replaced himself with me. Hurry. In the Hokage office grabbed her head a moment and Asuma asked, are you okay The Hokage looked at as she let go of her head and started moving toward the window and she said Naruto, Hess being attacked by Mizuki and Hess in trouble and needs help. The training ground behind the Hokage mountain. As she jumped out the window heading by rooftop toward the mountain, leaving a shocked group behind. The Hokage quickly got to his feet and said what's going on Asuma. Asuma shook his head and said I don't know, but won't lie about something like that. Come on you guys, let's follow her. The Hokage yelled gourds as the rest of Team 10 left following The door burst open and Katetsu and Izumo burst in, and the third said, both of you follow me. I just received word Naruto being attacked agent at training ground 86. As he left with a leaf shushin, followed by both his Chunin gourds. Sakura ducked under a kunai swipe from Mizuki, and he said well, this is just too perfect. Not only do I get to kill the demon but his little whore as well. As he backhanded her across the face. Sakura cursed herself and thought I can't use my chakra to fight right now because I am already low from earlier. I needed to save Naruto. As she backflipped away again. Sakura asked as she tried to catch her breath, why did you attack us Mizuki? Mizuki said oh, I was given a job to kill the demon and when I saw you whoring yourself out that you needed to die also. I would please myself with your body, but I don't want to catch any diseases you might have got from that demon. Sakura narrowed her eyes as she started to let her anger get to her and she said like you could. I enjoyed taking those balls from you a few years ago bastard. The only demon I see is you. That froze Mizuki in the spot he was as his face turned from one of a maniacal smile to that of one of intense hate and rage. He charged at Sakura with renewed vigor and as he had quit playing with her and now trying to kill her as he screamed I will kill you, you fucking bitch. As any idea of tactics went way out the window. Sakura cursed herself as she fell for a fake slash and received a cut across her arm and she cried out just as and the rest of Team 10 arrived followed moments later by the Hokage and his two gourds. Seeing her friend in trouble and Naruto on the ground, started doing hand signs and slammed her hands into the ground and said Doten Senbons as Senbon needles shot out of the ground and impaled Mizuki with 1000s of needles running him through. Sakura looked at as she held her arm and said get over here quick chakra poison in my arm. As she tried to stop the bleeding, ignoring the fact she was in nothing but a birthday suit. The Hokage saw Naruto on the ground and started to run over to him as both his guards ran over to Mizuki to see if he was still alive. Asuma followed his dad to check on Naruto as ran over to Sakura while doing hand signs and screamed Choji, Shikamaru, I need some fresh water and fast. As she put her hand above Sakura's arm. Both boys snapped out of their daze and ran to the river to get some water. The Hokage looked at Naruto as he prepared to grab him when Sakura screamed don't move him or you will kill him. Making the Hokage look at her. He said Sakura this is no as he shut up as he was blasted by a lot of Kai from Sakura and she screamed I mean it, I can tell both his lunges have been punctured as well as part of his spine and one has nicked his heart as well, if you remove the weapons or move him you will kill him. Each of those weapons were coated with the same poison Ino's removing from me. Just wait a moment and we can heal him. The Hokage looked at Sakura and Ino said shush right, whoever created this shit made it exactly to stop Naruto and his bloodline as she glanced at the Hokage and then the boys making him nod as he understood what she meant. Oh there would be questions later, but for now he said, are you sure you can heal him? If Hess in as bad a shape as you both say can you save him? He asked. Shikamaru came over with a potato chip bag full of water and Ino placed her glowing hand that was over Sakura's wound in the water and it turned black and both girls moved after that as Sakura did one hand signs, making her hand glow green as she hovered it above the wound as they ran to Naruto. Sakura shoved the Hokage out of the way and said follow behind me removing the poison and sealing any leaks I miss as I go from heart, lunges and then spine. I'm going to need a soldier pill and fast as my reserves are low now from training. As she began to work on his heart after removing the first kunai. Ino a moment behind her as Choji came over with another bag of water and Ino said get me more shika, Hess got a lot more poison than Sakura did. Ignoring the looks everyone was giving the two girls. Shikamaru muttered troublesome as he poured the water out that had the poison from Sakura in and ran back to the river. The Hokage slowly stood himself back up from where he was shoved away as his son walked over to him, both watching the events going on. He asked since when do both Ino and Sakura know medical jutsu. The third said I knew Sakura had mysteriously gotten some skills, but I passed it off as maybe some medic on the field told her, but the skill level both girls are showing is too good to be that. Also that jutsu Ino used to kill Mizuki was a B rank jutsu that only Ibiki and me know. How she learned it I don't know but I will find out. Something's going on and I don't like it one bit. Hitetsu walked over with Izuma and said Mizuki dead, there's not really a lot to identify him with either. As he looked at both girls' work on Naruto. Izuma said what the hell happened here? I mean why are Naruto and that girl both naked and how did a genin kill a chunin like that and not even flinch? Hell they acting better than seasoned medic nins right now. Hitetsu asked is he going to make it? As both gourds were among the few who actually liked Naruto and saw him as a hero. The third said I don't know but for some reason I believe Hess in the best hands possible right now. Sakura screamed hey, dipshits, anyone got any soldier pills? I'm nearly out of chakra. As her hand started to flicker as she kept working. Izuma looked at the Hokage who nods and ran over to Sakura pulling one out and she opened her mouth not even looking up and he put it in her mouth and she bit down on it swallowing the pill and felt her reserves return and asked how soon Ino. Ino who was sweating said 5, maybe 6 minutes. Sakura said shit, it's taking too long, Ino take over left lunge for a second. Ino never bothered to ask why as she put the poison in the third bag of water and quickly flipped through hand signs and moved her now glowing hands to where Sakura was working. Sakura taking the moment closed her eyes and said initial gate kai shocking everyone as she was covered in chakra and quickly moving her hands into motion and said Kagebunshin no jutsu. As 3 more Sakura popped out and all moved around Naruto as they each began to work on him. Ino quickly moved back as the real Sakura took back over working on Naruto. The Hokage was flabbergasted and said I am definitely getting answers after this. Asuma nods and said is that really Sakura and Ino? The third said I don't know. Someone is going to explain to me exactly why 2 genins fresh by just a few weeks out of the academy can perform medical procedures that takes years of skills and knowledge as well as used to separate forbidden jutsu and one only 2 people know. As the look of determination crossed his face. After several moments Sakura arm spasmed and Ino said Sakura, close the gate, your body's starting to react to the backlash. Sakura continued and said I can't Ino, you know like I do no one currently at the hospital would actually help Naruto right and would rather see him dead. Besides the moment I shut it off I'm already going to collapse from chakra exhaustion. The Kagebunshins took most of my chakra but it's the only way I could get to all the areas I need to in time. How long? Ino grunted and said 30 seconds and then follow up. Sakura nods and Shikamaru asked what are you talking about with the time? Ino said till the poison's completely removed. If we can get it out his bloodline will do the rest for us. Shikamaru glanced at Naruto worried and Choji asked is he going to make it? Sakura who was panting released her Kagebunshins and said that's it, I'm out Ino. As she closed the first gate and passed out beside Naruto. Ino sighed as she continued to work and the third ran over with the others and checked Sakura before taking his coat off and picking her up and Asuma said, I got her dad. The third nods and said take her to our compound and have Heizo take a look at her and no one else. Is that understood? I will be there shortly with Naruto as well. Asuma took Sakura and left in a swirl of leaves and Kitetsu asked what do you want us to do sir? The third sighed as he looked at Naruto and then Mizuki and Ino who was still working and said, wait until we're done and then I want you to go and get Ibiki to come and investigate this and have him find out who made that poison and what it's made of so we can maybe make a cure for it while Izuma stands guard of the area and make sure no one messes with the area until he arrives. A few moments later Ino stopped as Naruto's body was covered in red chakra and she said give him a few moments to let his bloodline war as she started to wobble and start to fall back and Shikamaru caught her and the third sighed and said can you both bring her to my compound? I will have my personal doctor check on her as well as Sakura and Naruto. As he bent over to pick Naruto up. Shikamaru nods and Choji grabbed Ino's feet and said sure, no problem. She's our teammate after all. The third nods and turns to the 2 chunins and said you know what to do. As he left in a swirl of leaves. When he arrived at his home he saw his personal Dr. Heizo looking at Sakura as he set Naruto down on a bed in the small infirmary in his home and asked how is she. Heizo sighed and said she's going to be fine. It looks like she's mostly got a bad case of chakra exhaustion and some minor muscle damage but from what Asuma told me it's most likely from opening the gate. There was something else though. She's recently had sexual intercourse I can't find any traces of force so I believe it's consensual but she's also got some weird mark on her neck sir. The third nods looking at the mark on her neck wondering what it is and said okay, can you look at Naruto now? Both Sakura and Ino who will be here shortly had to remove some kind of poison from him while healing damage to both lunges, heart and spine. Heizo got wide-eyed and ran to Naruto shoving the third aside and he muttered no respect. As he straightened himself back up and Heizo whistled as he stopped checking Naruto and said you say that Sakura here and another girl named Ino healed him. As he looked at the third. The third nods and asked yes, why? Aizo said well, from what I can tell from what little scar tissue that is still healing on the inside, I would have believed that it was Tsunade who done the work by how complete the work was done. The third narrowed his eyes and said yes, I believe they are very skilled, is he going to be fine? Aizo said yes, he should be back to normal either tomorrow or the next day depending on his friend. As he looked around to make sure no one overheard. The third nods and door to the room opened and Asuma leads Shikamaru and Choji inside who were carrying Ino, and the third motioned for one of the empty hospital beds and turned to the boys after they put her down and said alright boys. I want you to go on home for the day but do not tell anyone about anything that happened. Not even your family. If anyone asks where any of those three are just tell them I have them on a mission and that they can see me about it. Is that understood? Shikamaru asked are they going to be alright as the doctor checked Ino. The doctor said yes, just a few days of rest and all three should be back to normal. As he finished checking her and said just chakra exhaustion sir. The third nodded and said keep an eye on them for me Heizo and let me know the moment any of them awake or any change in condition. As he looked at Naruto body thanking whoever it was that looked after him today. Asuma quickly moved the boys out of the room before they could ask any more questions and the Heizo said yes sir. As he got some IV drip started to send fluids into them. As Shikamaru and Choji left the Sarutobi compound Choji asked, when did Ino learn to do that and since when does Naruto have a bloodline? Shikamaru looked up at the sky and said women are troublesome. Choji pulled out a bag of chips and started to eat and said well Kibalos, she's a natural pink. Making Shikamaru trip and mutter troublesome. What if Naruto finds out he has a sister? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.